show with personality on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life: your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this? It's my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, good to see you. 6 o'clock is the time. It's Wednesday, the 29th of November. You're tuned into Breakfast here on GB News with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your company. Here's what's leading the news this morning. Rifts deepen within the Conservative Party over ballooning migration numbers as Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick takes aim at number 10 over a lack of action. Catherine Forster has more from Westminster.
Yes, many Conservative MPs very unhappy with net migration now at 750,000 last year. And splits even within the cabinet. There's supposed to be collective responsibility, but Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick is saying that if he'd had his way, he'd have brought in measures to clamp down on migration over a year ago. I'll bring you more shortly.
Strong words. Thank you very much, Catherine. British High Street. There it is. It's the backbone of your community and economy, but is it under threat? Labour today will launch plans to help small businesses, and our economics editor, Liam Halligan, assesses the mood of the High Street.
Bombshell book Endgame has reignited the Harry and Meghan royal race row. Sales were halted in Holland after a Dutch version seemed to identify a family member accused of racism.
I'm a celebrity row. Nigel Farage supporters claim he's been edited out of the programme. Your views welcome.
And Paul Coit is here with all your sport.
I won't be edited out of the programme, will I?
No.
Are you sure?
Definitely not. No, more of you we can get, the better.
Newcastle were robbed in Paris last night. Manchester City stages comeback against Leipzig, and Rory McIlroy earns $15 million from the PGA without even hitting a golf ball. It's not bad money, is it?
Not bad.
Not bad. If you can get it.
Excellent. A frosty week ahead. It's going to get cold, and you're worried about
Well,
this?
I had my windscreen scraper at the ready, but didn't need it. It was raining when I left the house first thing this morning.
But today's only Wednesday. It's Thursday you're looking out for. Alex Deacon.
Another cold one out there today, and it's going to be cold for the rest of this week. Frosty mornings, some fog, and yes, some places seeing some snow. Join me later for a full forecast.
How are you feeling the cold? How are you going to deal with it? You can join in any of our discussions. The immigration situation, how has it got to this? You've got the government turning on itself now about this. Email your views, gbviews@gbnews.com, or tweet at GBNews.
So our top story this morning, divisions within government over migration show no sign of abating. Appearing in the Commons yesterday, the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick's been accused of breaching collective cabinet responsibility after blasting his own government's inability to cut net migration.
So serious stuff. His comments come as a number of Conservative MPs are frustrated by the growing migration levels after figures last week revealed net migration hit a record high last year.
Well, let's get some analysis on all of this from our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Good morning to you, Catherine. I've been reading for a few days he's on resignation watch. I wonder if he might be sacked after some of these comments as well. But he's certainly tapped into a particular wing of the party. Now that Suella Braverman has gone, really trying to drum home the point that he's being blocked, as he puts it, from doing what he wants to do to try and cut migration.
Yes, the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, is certainly sailing rather close to the wind, isn't he, with these comments? He was considered very close to Rishi Sunak. He was a big ally. When he was brought in underneath Suella Braverman, it was basically that he would sort of keep her in check. But many people seem to think that he's gone over to the other side, if you like, in that he seems to genuinely be deeply, deeply concerned about the levels of net migration. And let's face it, it's not surprising, is it? 750,000 last year. That number is completely and utterly unprecedented, and this from a Conservative government that has spent 13 years promising to get it down for many years to the tens of thousands, and in 2019 below what it was then, which was under 250,000. So speaking in the House of Commons yesterday, he was asked if a package of measures to bring down net migration would be brought in before Christmas. And he said, well, if I'd had my way, I would have had measures brought in before last Christmas. So there's many, many Conservative MPs openly unhappy on the backbenches, and clearly divisions within the cabinet as well. They are worried that this is going to hurt them significantly at the upcoming general election. And of course, we hear all the time, don't we, about stop the boats, small boats. Those numbers are going down about a third. There's been huge attention on that. But when you look at the numbers, about 45,000 crossing illegally in a year, as against 750,000, you do wonder whether legal migration isn't in fact going to be a much bigger issue for voters.
They have the choice to say no to legal migration. So therefore, Catherine, we're in a situation where some part of government says, look, we need these people, against, I don't know whether that's the Treasury against the Home Office or whatever, but how can we say you've got to keep 750,000 legal migrants down when we're only too willing to give them passports to get into the country?
Well, yes, this is entirely of the government's own making. Before Brexit, when they were not able to control migration from the EU, they could say, this is beyond control, we'll take back control with Brexit. These numbers are directly because of choices the government is making, and it's basically the Home Office versus everybody else. The Treasury likes the money that comes in from workers coming into the country. The health sector likes the workers coming in, desperately needed to work in social care and in the NHS. The Education Secretary likes all the foreign students coming in. So yes, these are choices that are being made, but certainly earlier in the year, Rishi Sunak announced a clamp down on dependents coming with students. It's likely that they will clamp down now on dependents coming with care workers. It's likely that the minimum salary you have to earn to come will go up significantly, perhaps to 35,000. It's 26 at the moment. Possibly a cap. But of course, it's very difficult because many of these workers are desperately needed. Meanwhile, we've got 5 million people in Britain sitting on out-of-work benefits, and many people are saying, well, why aren't we trying to get our own people back into work rather than just shipping them in from abroad?
Although, the breakdown of the numbers, it's 750,000, but the vast, vast majority are students, 643,000 of those. That should be easy enough. Why do we need to import students? Surely we've got enough of our own wanting to go to university.
They're only a temporary problem, Catherine, because they're only going to be here 3, 4, 5 years, one would imagine. So why are they that problematic?
Well, they just add to the overall numbers, and the numbers of foreign students in universities has gone up dramatically in recent years. But of course, the reason the education department loves them, the universities love them, is because they often pay around double in tuition fees what UK students pay. So it's financially really in the universities' interest. But of course, the thing is, 750,000 more people, all the people need housing, even within the university sector. There's now huge problems in that universities often don't have accommodation to put up all these students, and you often have the ridiculous situation of students going to university in one city and having to live somewhere entirely different. So there's a lack of infrastructure. Really, if you're going to have these numbers, you've got to have the housing, you've got to have the healthcare, you've got to have everything needed. So really difficult decisions coming for the government.
Catherine, thank you very much indeed. This is going to be a great talking point for our viewers and listeners today. I was in Manchester at the weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And I can tell you, I have never... I mean, I used to live in Manchester in the 80s into the 90s. And now going back to it, I don't recognise it at all. It is full of apartments, full of flats, and I mean full. There are tower blocks absolutely everywhere. Now, are these students? A lot of people say they're Chinese students in particular who buy into these apartment blocks and whatever. But how on earth, who are all these people in Manchester, and why are they living in, you know, one-bedroom apartments, two-bedroom apartments? What do they work at? Where did they go? Manchester, I'm saying this, you might be looking at me saying, what's he going on about?
No, not
here?
at all.
But the landscape of Manchester, the visual landscape,
dramatically
completely
changed. Even
different.
the town I grew up in, Woking in Surrey, now it has tower blocks. It's got huge, tower blocks. But, you know, the number, 750,000 people, is equivalent to a new city of Glasgow or a new city of Cambridge each year. So that's why these big cities and towns are suddenly expanding upwards, because obviously there's a limit to how far they can go out with the green belt. It is a problem, but it certainly seems to me that the students is an issue. I know that the government are bringing in this limit from January on the dependents that come. I mean, it seems crazy that these students can be coming from Nigeria and bring their 3 children and husband and that be fine.
What I'm going to say is this. Let's take the care sector as an example. Our care sector could not work in this country without these people. And this is not me or Isabel sitting saying, oh, you shouldn't let them in. We're letting them in for a reason. We're letting them in because A, they're needed, B, nobody here wants to do the job as well. So what are you going to do if you suddenly say, all you people from around the world cannot come to this country? They're doing jobs that people you know don't want to do. So it's OK saying there's 5 million people unemployed in the country. Why don't we get them into the jobs? They don't want to work in those areas, which is
Well, we have to ask ourselves, what is
depressing.
the acceptable number? Labour seems to think 200,000 or so. Well, if 200,000 is the cap, you've got care workers at 101,000 and nurses at 23,000. So you're still well under that 200,000 there, and you've got those two sectors covered. And then you can have your remaining 70,000 or whatever it is of students. It just seems obvious to me that this is the problem, is the students. But then would our universities suffer if we clamp down on that valuable, you know, sort of commodity?
Well, I don't think so.
Students?
I think our universities should be for our people. I don't think they're necessarily for people all around the world. However, I remember under the Blair government, there was very much an open door as regards migration, and the theory was that the more people they let in from around the world, the more likely they were to vote Labour, the more likely they were to skew the voting patterns of the country. And it was that part of the problem? Is that part of the problem? But you've got, obviously, the Treasury here saying, and commercialism winning, saying, we need people to fuel the economy and to work in these areas, or else we'll sink.
No growth,
And then you've got the Home Office, whatever, saying, well, why are we bringing everybody in? But then the Home Office grants the licences for people to come in.
No, it's a huge tension.
So,
you want growth, but you don't want immigration. Well, then how are you going to square that circle? It's a dilemma. We're glad we're not having to make those decisions. Let us know what you think about it.
This is also in Ireland. Actually, you had riots at the weekend in Ireland about this, and a lot of people complaining now about the imbalance of migration in the Republic of Ireland as well.
I see it in Sweden as well, traditionally very tolerant place, and now increasingly intolerant. Look at what's just happened in the Netherlands with Geert Wilders being elected again. The Dutch, traditionally incredibly relaxed and liberal, and swinging to the right. So, you know, it is a huge problem right across
But they're letting
Europe.
swingers in. What?
Well, the Dutch have always been that way inclined.
A lot of swingers coming in.
Very liberal in the
Now,
sexual area.
Sort of related to all of this, the high street. Right, the backbone of British communities, helping to keep the economy up and running. Nobody's interested in the high street anymore. People don't shop there. People don't go there.
When was the last time you went to a high street?
Got me there, kiddo.
Yeah,
but then
this
that's
is the
because
thing.
I've got my afflictions.
Well, no, but
I
that's
can't
part
really
of the
get out.
problem. No, but that's part of the problem. It's hard to get there. I went to a pharmacy on my nearby high street, but parking was impossible.
Parking's the issue.
And it was just an unpleasant experience. And next time I made a mental note, I'll go to one of those out-of-town places.
Yeah,
go to the pharmacy
where
there.
parking is available, or people order stuff online.
Or just the big supermarket, which has a pharmacy as well.
Costs are rising. There's antisocial behaviour, they say, in the high street with kebab vans and various things like this, and people gathering
People
around
without
these
jobs.
of an evening, spilling out of pubs and whatever. Labour seems to think that the high street is under threat, so today the Shadow Business Secretary will be outlining her plans to help with the high street.
But ahead of that, our economic and business editor, Liam Halligan's taken to the streets, and he's been speaking with local shopkeepers.
In Chelmsford's much-loved market, Mark Smith's preparing for the pre-Christmas rush. His family have run this butcher's stall for more than 50 years, and Mark has a good feel for the state of consumer confidence. Even here in Chelmsford, he says, just 30 miles from London, a lot of families are still struggling.
Got to help the customer first, I think, as in you've got to try and help the kids out with the interest rates on their mortgages. You know, because we all went through it in years and years ago, it went up. But if they could just do that, just help them out with their mortgages, their rents, all this type of thing, then they can pass what they're saving onto the high street, and the high street could pick up.
Mark and his team have noticed the cost of living squeeze and rising food, energy and mortgage costs means customers are adapting, going for cheaper cuts of meat.
If your mortgage goes up, you've got to cut something, and you can cut your food. They chop cheaper, you know, where instead of having...
You've noticed that, yeah?
Yeah, and they've been buying stewing stuff. A lot of them have gone back to basics, where they're making their own stews, where before there was going to dearer cuts of meat, but now they've gone back to making their own stews, a lot of them. Even the youngsters, before it was all the older people, but even the youngsters doing it.
Hello, Dan, Never Waste a Journey. How can I help?
Across town travel consultant Dan Salmon says the holiday market's splitting into two.
At the moment, there's a real split down the middle. I think on one hand, with obviously lower disposable income coming in, there's less spending on holidays. People are probably taking less holidays as well. With the kind of the state that the actual economy is in at the moment, there's a lot of uncertainties. But on the other hand, the luxury travel market has been absolutely booming still over the last 12 months. YourGov recently did a poll and people are spending more than they've ever spent before on their holidays. But what people are looking for is more meaningful experiences, so the luxury market is willing to spend for that.
Like most customer-facing folk I met in Chelmsford, Dan says the economy's on a knife edge, on a trajectory that could go either way, but he's hoping for the best.
I've been optimistic for quite a while now. It's how long can that go on for? But I think, being honest with you, I think it can only get better. But yeah, from what I'm seeing, it's really, really unstable at the moment, and I think it could go either way. But I just hope it's going to improve for the better.
Liam Halligan, GB News, Chelmsford.
Oh, depressing.
So much to get into in that.
But it's interesting that a lot of people still have money to pay for cruises and adventures.
Well, not just, but luxury. You know, this is high-end holidays.
That's what I said.
Surprised to hear that.
Cruises and adventures.
I thought you were
not
just...
high-end.
No, I know.
How much higher end?
I was agreeing. I
can
was
you
just
get-
embellishing what you were saying, you know.
Have you ever gone on a cruise?
I've been on a ferry crossing to Santander.
No, that's not the same.
But it had like, a cinema, and it had swimming pools, and it
Yes.
had like a beauty salon, and it was a very exciting
It's all
experience.
very nice if the sea's calm.
It was horrific. We all lost weight, put it that way.
Yeah, no, that's you don't want that. And, I love a cruise. I
could see you filling, passing out your days
I'd have to go on my own.
on a cruise.
My
Oh,
wife
you'd
doesn't-
have plenty of company, don't you worry about
My
that.
wife doesn't do any motions. You get motion sickness in anything. But so she won't do cruises. So if there's anybody out there who would be a companion...
By the way, I have offered
companion,
before to come on a
particularly if
cruise
you're
with you.
attractive. Will you keep
Hello?
quiet? A companion out there, just friendship.
Oh, don't worry about it then. I won't come. I would love to go on a cruise with you.
I said somebody was attractive, though.
Oh, gosh.
But anyway, that would be nice. A nice companion, somebody you could talk about
Fine.
the
I
arts
don't want
with,
to.
and
Please.
I don't want someone there just for my body. Being there for all
You want to
that.
talk about the Elgin marbles and all that sort of stuff.
The Elgin marbles, that is a thing.
That is a
Give them
thing.
back, for goodness sake.
I don't understand it,
That's
but
what you
really
stole
be
them.
careful what you start there, because people will get very, very upset.
But apparently they weren't the Greeks in the first place. They were owned by the Turks. The Turks had occupied Greece at that stage when Lord Elgin went in and bought them. And the guy sold them to him. So he felt he bought them.
Right.
Anyway, at the time, 18 minutes past the hour. A very good morning to Eamonn and Isabel here at Breakfast on GB News.
Here's a reminder of our top story this morning, and rifts are deepening within the Conservative Party over ballooning migration numbers. The Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick's now taken aim at number 10 over what he perceives as a lack of action.
In other news, another 12 hostages have been freed overnight by Hamas. 10 Israelis, 2 Thai nationals. The 75-year-old mother of a British-Israeli man is amongst those released. This marks the 5th day of the extended truce, as Israel also released 30 Palestinian prisoners, believed to be 15 women and 15 teenage boys.
A man has admitted killing 3 people and pleaded guilty to the attempted murder of 3 more in a spate of attacks in Nottingham earlier this year. Valdo Calacane, also known as Adam Mendes, denied murder but admitted 3 counts of manslaughter on the basis of diminished responsibility. The 32-year-old also admitted the attempted murder of 3 others. The case has now been adjourned until next January.
Former presidents and first ladies have attended the memorial service of the late First Lady Rosalind Carter. The guests also included her husband, 99-year-old Jimmy Carter, who made a rare public appearance since entering hospice care 10 months ago.
That was a real cast of leaders past and present there. Spotted Melania, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Mrs Bush. Who else did I spot there? Somebody right at the beginning that I thought was interesting. Yes, Kamala Harris, there you go, and her husband. But, we were talking yesterday about funerals, and actually it turned into quite a big discussion point on the programme about, it is just respectful to turn out. Oh, there's Michelle Obama as well, to turn out to somebody's funeral, and it's, the very least you can do Jill Biden and Joe at the back as well there. Gosh, that is quite a cast, isn't it? And you expect that, former First Ladies.
You get to a certain stage in life where you're not going to weddings anymore, you're going to a lot of funerals. But the point I was making yesterday is what a tribute, what a way to say that someone meant something, to actually, to go out of your way to turn up to say goodbye to them. And Jimmy Carter.
There's Jimmy Carter himself. I'm glad we replayed this to see those pictures. Really sad to see him looking so frail. But fabulous he was able to attend the late First Lady's funeral.
Now, it's time to check in on I'm a Celebrity, Nigel Farage's journey there. So the big rise is about ITV being accused of cutting him out of airtime. So let's find out the views of our reporter down under, Ben Leo, who's been monitoring things. And, what's your opinion? Do you think his time's been reduced or what?
Well, it's kicking off inside and outside the jungle, Eamonn. Let me just take you back just over 24 hours where I told you guys on Breakfast and also Patrick Christie's, I exclusively revealed that a key conversation that Farage had with his campmates about Donald Trump, his friendship, how he helped him on the election campaign, how ITV had omitted that conversation, fueling theories that his airtime was being reduced. Since then, it's been confirmed that I was right. My sources were true. That did happen. ITV said that we're a 60 to 75 minute entertainment show. It's always our intention to show a fair and accurate representation of life in camp. So that was true. In the last few hours, a very big development has taken place. It's been reported off the back of my revelations and that story blowing up. It was reported in the Mail, the Sun, etc. Off the back of that revelation, it's now been reported that ITV News were planning around this weekend, to coincide with the first eviction vote in the jungle, to drop a story that involved allegations against Nigel Farage, where he was recording a Cameo video. Cameo is a service where you pay £75 and you get celebrities to record a message of your choice, and they read it out and they send it to someone. Farage basically in 2021 recorded a Cameo video which contains an obscure term that is definitely ambiguous, but what ITV News are planning to say was racist. Farage was essentially duped by trolls into making this video for a friend or to someone they didn't like. And yeah, they've now either sat on it for 2 years or it's just come out 2 years later, and they were planning to drop it this weekend to coincide with the first I'm a Celebrity vote. So remember, this is fresh off the back of our story, which led all the newspapers about the confirmation that ITV was airbrushing essentially Farage from the show, or at least key conversations. A friend of Farage told me overnight ITV bosses are trying everything in their power to take him off air. It's that simple. GBNews has gone back to ITV News with a list of questions in relation to the story they were planning to drop. But it's funny, isn't it? This comes off the back of abusive comments by ITV Managing Director Kevin Lygo last week, off the back of Lorraine Kelly being criticised for body shaming Nigel Farage. And it's all piecing together now, it seems. It's a very, very funnily, coincidentally timed ambush, you could call it, on Farage, off the back of our confirmation that it was being starved of airtime. Elsewhere, inside the jungle, by the way, Nigel doesn't know about any of this. The other criticism of ITV is that they've come to Farage's team and GB News for comment from Nigel when he's locked in the jungle. He doesn't have access to his phones, he's not speaking to his lawyers, he's not speaking to GB News or his team, and it's rather, in the terms of Nigel's friends, it's absurd that they bring this now. Elsewhere, inside the jungle, last night, Nigel was voted to do tonight's trial, and surprise, surprise, the show was extended by 15 minutes at the very last minute to include another row between Nigel and influencer Nella Rose. They had an argument about cultural appropriation. This is the moment.
Why do they say water like that? Is it like a joke or something? We say it. We go put it in the water. It's patois. It's the Jamaican version of saying water. They say water.
You got to boil your water, and they say your water.
In fact, if you sang that, they'd call it cultural appropriation, Fred. They would. No, they would.
I know, but everybody's doing my accent. Is it cultural appropriation?
I know. It's when suits. They criticise when suits.
What do you mean, Nigel?
If a white person does a black accent, that's considered to be a crime. You know, they should be cancelled.
It depends in what context. If you're taking the then you're taking the but if you're not, then you're not.
So you can't, sort of can't win territory.
Nah, it just depends on the context.
When we were talking about it, he was saying, like, it's just about the population, but the way that he's, like, promoted that in his work has just been a bit inhumane almost, you know what I mean? And it's like, hang on.
OK, so let me just be clear, very quick recap on what's happened. We broke the exclusive story that Nigel, or certainly some of his conversations, were not being included in the show. Since then, overnight, ITV News, it's been revealed, were planning to drop a story that accuses Nigel of being racist based on a 2-year-old video that he was paid to do on the Cameo video service, containing a very obscure term that could mean many, many things. That was coincided to drop this weekend, right on time to coincide right on time with the first vote of I'm a Celebrity. Yeah, that's where we are.
Okay, so evictions happen this weekend, and are you getting the feeling that it suits everyone for Nigel to be voted out, or is it good for viewing figures if he stays in?
Well, look, I've got my own personal theory, which people will dispute. The argument on the other side is that Nigel is just too boring and he's not sensational enough, and that's why he's not getting a lot of airtime. My own theory is that he is proving very popular with viewers. He's not doing as ITV, I suspect, wanted him to do, which is cause a stir with extreme views that they thought he had on immigration, on Brexit. The times he has spoken about those issues, on migrants, on Brexit, on the UK's independence, he's come across pretty well, and he's actually shown that you can have a conversation about those things without being toxic or tribal. So my theory is that ITV got him in the jungle to tarnish any future prospects he had politically. It's no secret he wants to get back involved in politics. It's not worked. They since starved his airtime, which I've proven to be true, and now coincidentally this ITV News story. So,
okay, Ben,
yeah,
thank you.
You just got to piece it all together.
Okay, we pieced it all together, and we must say big improvement on your backdrop this morning. Very good. Where are you this morning?
So we're in Surfers Paradise this morning, which is the small suburb of the Gold Coast where Ant and Deck stay, all the families and friends of the contestants stay. There's a couple of nice yachts there as well, which I might try and sneak on board to, a couple of millionaires living nearby. But yeah, glad you're enjoying the backdrop. But the weather's about to turn as well, so I think if I'd come to you 10 minutes later, you would have seen me sodden wet again, as you did yesterday.
Yeah, okay, the tropical summer's down under. Good stuff. Thank you.
Thanks for all the insight there, Ben. Thank you.
Eamonn, you have scored. We've had an email in from Shirley. I'm 65 years old, I'm single, I'm flying to Barbados on the 8th of December. She's pretty much stopped short of giving us literally the number and name of the boat that she's going on. I've been a widow for over a year and I would enjoy your company. I too would enjoy chats and laughs and just good company with nothing else involved.
So Shirley, we're going to Barbados.
But then John's jumped to my rescue and he said, it's Eamonn's loss. I would have jumped at the chance to take you on a cruise.
That's good. You see, I agree.
So we're sorted now?
No, I agree.
You go with Shirley, I'll go with John.
Yes, but John doesn't know you.
Well, neither does Shirley.
That's the whole thing. Shirley knows what she's getting with me, but John, he's going superficially, the package is lovely.
Well, that's a nice thing. At least that.
I wanted to say something nice about you today. What was it?
Did you? I just can't think. It's a real struggle.
There was something, was it in that Hello Magazine article or whatever it is? Anyway, you were beautiful in that. You were stunning.
Yeah, there we go.
It is. What do you mean, here we go? I was just selling you, it was.
Yeah, a bit too late now. Don't want me on your cruise, it's fine. Everybody heard.
But saying superficially, everybody looks and they think it's a beautiful package.
Anyway.
That's a nice outfit you have on today.
Thank you very much. Yours too. Right, let's move on, shall we? Nice tie. Okay. Lovely. Here's the weather with Alex Deakin.
Morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. The cold spell continues, a frosty start for many, and we've seen a covering of snow in places. We've still got sleet and snow showers coming in this morning over northern and eastern Scotland, southeast Scotland, northeast England. Could be quite icy out there this morning as well. Well, we've got those showers, and there's a few fog patches to be wary of. A bit more cloud across the south, 1 or 2 rain showers here, but that cloud breaking up through the morning. So actually, for most of us, a fine day. Yes, it's going to be cold, 2 or 3 degrees for quite a few of us, but there will be plenty of sunshine. Temperatures a little higher across the south and southwest. With the clouds sticking around in the far southwest, and we'll continue with some showers here through the evening and overnight. There'll be rain showers here initially, but more sleet and snow showers coming into the northeast. So again, things could well turn icy. And even in the south, We could just see a little bit of snow coming in over the moors in particular. For many, though, it's another dry, clear night, so another frosty start tomorrow morning. For anything a little colder, temperatures more widely down to -3 or -4. And again, some mist and fog patches. Thursday's a bit of a mishmash, again, for quite a few of us, just dry, fine and sunny, but more cloud in the south with some outbreaks of mostly rain on the south coast, but if it's a little further north, could provide some sleet and snow for a time. Further wintry showers keeping coming along some of those North Sea coasts. And again, it's going to be another pretty cold one with temperatures 3 or 4 up.
Well, wait till you hear this. We've got a report coming up very shortly that baked beans, and I never thought of this before, but apparently baked beans are grown in South America, but not anymore. What would you say? There's been an experiment.
Oh, right, as a scientist.
By the University of Warwick, and a farmer who then uses what they have developed, and he's now growing British baked beans. You may have thought there always was British baked beans, but no, it's a new thing. Next.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Beans.
Beans, beans, good for your heart. Beans, beans, they make you shop abroad, apparently, because up until now you've had to get them in from South America, although they are quintessentially British. But despite Brits eating a whopping 2 million cans of baked beans every day, did you know...
Every day?
Yeah.
2 million, wow.
Yeah, people have them for breakfast. Well, we're just discussing the best way to eat them. That's a whole other talking point.
I don't think beans should go at breakfast. That's a very English thing.
Oh, I love beans at breakfast with the sausage.
You never get beans in Ireland for breakfast.
What do you lubricate your fry up with? Ketchup?
We just have an Ulster fry, traditional thing. You don't spoil it with beans.
Right, OK.
It's a very English
We digress.
thing. Right.
Anyway, the point is, not a single bean had been grown here in the UK, but...
That could be about to change. The University of Warwick has paired with a farmer in Lincolnshire to develop a new breed of beans, a genetically modified bean suitable to be grown in Britain. A small batch is ready for trials with Prince's food. I don't know that Prince's have been known for baked beans. I thought they were fish.
Oh, I thought they did.
Prince's.
Anyway.
What do you think, dog food?
I don't know. I'm going to stop talking. I don't know. I'm showing my ignorance. Anyway.
It's fish.
Will Hollis knows much more about this. Here's his report.
The new product development kitchen for food giant Prince's near Spalding, a dream has become reality.
This is the new variety, and you can see here a lovely bold sample.
Foreign baked beans dominate the market. But now Lincolnshire farmer Andrew Ward has grown a new variety from his farm in Leadenham that can withstand our weather.
They did harvest really well. We had to have a specialist header on the front of the combine to pick them up because they grow very low to the ground, but that worked extremely well. The growing was a challenge due to the weather, but in the end it was massively successful.
Baked beans came to Britain under the name Heinz in the 19th century. We've been hooked ever since. The University of Warwick is breeding the new beans, called Capulet, alongside Andrew and the help of agricultural consultants Agri. Professor Eric Holub is a crop scientist with the School of Life Sciences. He says growing British beans would help food sustainability and the nation's health.
We're interested in public health, and we're really keen to be involved in the message of all of us eating more plant fibre.
Now it's Prince's job to transform bland beans with the tomatoey taste Brits love. Liam's in charge of developing new products.
Until such time as we actually scale up into the factory, we won't really understand how they truly perform. At this stage, they look really good.
So here it is, the finished product, a can of British-grown baked beans. It is only one can though, and Brits, we love them so much that we eat 2 million a day. So they're going to need quite a few more before you'll see them on the supermarket shelves.
Princes turn out 730,000 cans of beans every day. If trials are successful, there could one day be more variety to choose from, according to Prince's corporate director, David McDermott.
Where it's possible, where it's scalable, where it works, we feel that we have a responsibility to see if we can be involved in that. And of course, these are being grown in Lincolnshire, 30 miles away from where we sit now.
Our reliance on imported beans won't change. The nation's appetite is too great. But an ability to feed ourselves brings a new option to the dinner table. Will Hollis, GB News in Spalding.
That's fascinating. As climate change happens and whatever, you know, you've got to adapt your crops and cater for what people want. But I don't want a variety of baked beans. I want baked beans. I don't want...
No, but presumably a haricot bean's a haricot bean, whether it's from South America or...
But they're saying there's different varieties of beans. You said you use butter beans.
I've made my own with butter beans, but then it's much bigger, so it's not like proper baked beans, but it is yummy.
And here's a question, Paul. Do you think they eat baked beans anywhere else in the world?
I don't think they do.
You can get them in South America, but they don't serve them like baked beans.
But they're never the same.
Yeah.
You can go anywhere else and you have baked beans, and you know what? And if they weren't red, if sometimes you get the white, you couldn't eat them if they weren't there. I didn't have the red.
Yes, I mean, so in Denmark, do they serve baked beans? Do they serve baked beans in Spain? Do they do?
I don't think so.
At British restaurants.
And how do you do yours? You know, we were saying we like a bit of Worcestershire sauce in it, maybe some cheese.
Well, I've got to tell you that if you put them in the microwave, you've got to get your timing right, because sometimes you get a little bit of the scummy stuff around the top. And if it's mixed in, on the stove, then it'll be better.
Old school.
But I don't like beans on toast. I like beans and toast. Toast on the side, beans in a bowl.
Like the soggy toast.
But I can't. That's it. I can't mix them together.
Well, I could do both, so I could have one foundation of soggy toast with toast around the side.
With a crispy on the side, so you make the most of the crispy toast.
I like tea with my beans.
Oh, absolutely.
I might even put some fried onions in just to jazz it up a little, to make a meal out of it.
You're going off piece now.
Yeah, trying to make a meal out of it.
No, it's not a meal. Beans and toast is fine. On its own. I think that's a good thing.
But I don't like beans with a fried egg, because sometimes the mix, the liquidy mix, doesn't work for me, so I always have to keep them aside.
But that's because your egg's too runny. If you went for a harder fried egg...
a hard fried egg, though.
Then that goes nicely with the runny.
I tell you,
madness.
when I was a kid, the doyen of culinary cuisine was baked beans. Heinz brought out baked beans in a can with sausages.
Oh, no. Because those sausages, they kind of melt on... They're sort of not...
But they're too soft. If you had I love the sausages cut up in the beans, but when they're in the tin, they're just a bit like Savoy-ish and a bit soft.
Oh, so you like a chopped sausage in your beans?
Proper sausage. Chop up, do them separately. That's glamour. That's what you want.
How do you do yours? We want to know this morning.
OK. We'll see you after 7 o'clock, Paul.
Sausage sport. Sausage and bean sport.
We'll do that. Still to come, the 40 worst Christmas presents you have received. That's going to be revealed in Headline Makers next.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's our favourite part of the programme. We review the papers and what's making headlines. This morning we're joined by Alex Armstrong and Anna Mikhailova. Good morning to both of you. Where do you want to start, Eamonn? Do you have any strong
I think,
preference?
Anna, we start with Omid Scobie's book, because we haven't talked about that this hour, and the revelations come out, and the book apparently has been pulled in Holland.
Yes, it's been pulled because apparently they accidentally revealed the name of the royal racist that they allege.
But why would they do that in Holland and not do it anywhere else? I don't really understand.
I think lots of people don't understand. The explanation so far that's been given is that it could be, this is beggars belief really, but translation confusion, which, considering it's a name, I don't really understand how that works. Translation confusion, or libel lawyers could have failed to delete the name, which to me suggests that there was a lot of work for the libel lawyers if they if they
last minute work
like that. But it's certainly one.
Could it be just an absolutely brilliant publicity stunt?
Yeah. Look, this... I'm going to speak relatively freely about this bloke here. Omid strikes me as a bit of a narcissist anyway. And yeah, just a tad. And frankly, I think he's doing anything he can to drum up his book. And there's a lot of unsubstantiated claims I've been reading about that are coming out of Endgame. And frankly, I think he's doing whatever he can to get attention. And it just so happens that this was pulled right at the perfect moment to have it being revealed to the public. So, again, we're this close to hearing this rumour about this so-called royal racist, and then it's pulled from the clutches of our hands. But I highly suspect it's all publicity. But who knows?
A lot of publicity about migration figures, Alex, as well. And front page of the Times talking about the pressure on the Prime Minister. And we got this Robert Jenrick out saying, migration should be capped. And you sort of think, look, will you guys have the power to do all of this? This is a mess of your own creating. What's your take on this?
Yeah, it's been a decade of going back and forth on immigration, hasn't it? And I can't believe the Tories still haven't got to grips with how to tackle this issue. It feels like every time it's brought up, it's the first time we're talking about
this is legal migration. This is not illegal stuff.
Yeah, legal migration, which is, of course, at its highest point ever. And I know you guys were talking this morning about a lot of that being students, which, of course, is a very simple solution. Just cut the amount of student visas. You know, this one here, we're talking specifically about Migration Advisory Committee, who are going to ditch parts of the shortage occupation list, which allows employers here to hire foreign workers at a 20% cut of the going rate that they would be hired for in the UK. Some of those jobs include, you know, bricklayers, care workers, sort of critical people.
But also ballerinas.
Exactly.
Now, hold on. I don't think we have a migrant crisis of ballerinas.
No,
let's just put it that.
So there's some
Yes, we do
practical-
have migrant crisis, but it's not a million ballerinas. Let's not attack the ballerinas too much this morning.
And also, I worry about attacking the bricklayers and the care workers and all these people. So if they're not going to do these jobs, who is going to do these jobs?
And for me, what I find slightly galling is, yes, we get the migration stats out, and suddenly all these politicians, including Robert Jenrick, come out and say how terrible it is and how they have to do so much more. But just a month ago, I was at a Conservative Party conference, sitting down with ministers telling me that our solution to the health crisis and the shortage and the waiting lists is to lower restrictions and bring more doctors in from India. That's what they were saying just a month ago, on top of what we already have. So they have to either be honest about what they actually need this workforce for, how long it's going to be here, and what that means for the welfare state, the health system, and the education system, or they need to end that dependence on migration to plug the other gaps in their policy.
But it's substantially students that make up that number. Out of 750,000 in the last year, 643,000 were students. And we know from January the dependents are going to be blocked. But I think there definitely needs to be conversations about why so many students are coming in, or if indeed many of them are staying after their studies
and
finish.
do they bring dependents?
Exactly.
Yes. Well, you know, for me, you know, obviously, immigration is all about growth, right? This is all about how we keep our GDP figures up. I just don't understand why the government aren't incentivising people to have children here and making the cost of having a child much cheaper, because it is really expensive. So if you want to grow the population in a natural way...
Joined up writing, joined up people talking, right hand not knowing what the left hand's doing, and politicians not telling the truth. So, you know, is it economically necessary for the country to have all these people or not? Tell us the truth. Anna, as we approach Christmas, you now have a list of the worst Christmas presents that people have received ever.
Yes, topping the list is, and this is a good one, an expired voucher. Which would be slightly gutting, really.
Well, you get an expired voucher.
Yeah.
I hate vouchers, full
Vouchers,
stop.
me too.
Yeah.
But expired ones, I think, is
no, because I
particularly-
mean, I get vouchers and they are. I expire them. They're a waste of time. They're a waste of space.
Okay, good to know, because your birthday's coming up this weekend. But listen, hold that thought. We'll talk more about Christmas presents next hour. We have to interrupt because we have the Environment Secretary, Steve Barclay, standing by, and we welcome him to the programme. Very good morning to you, Secretary of State. You might have heard us there just discussing the migration problems and woes for your government. Your colleague, Robert Jenrick, accused this morning of having gone rogue. The disquiet within the party extending right up into the Cabinet. Do you agree with him that he's been blocked from doing what he needs to do for the last year, as Suella Braverman's also been claiming?
Well, we all recognise in Cabinet we need to get the numbers down. The numbers are too high. That's why, when I was Health Secretary, we launched the first government ever to launch a long-term workforce plan for the NHS, as you were just talking about in terms of doctors. We need to grow more domestically. Of course, that takes time to train a doctor, but we've got a workforce plan for the NHS to double the number of doctors that we're training, but also to look at the wider skills mix, how we better use our pharmacists, how we better use our multiple disciplinary teams within NHS, how we use technology. So a huge amount of work going in there. We've already taken action in terms of student dependence. Closing that route will reduce the number by 150,000. As Health Secretary, I increased the immigration surcharge so that those coming in are paying more to contribute to the NHS. But all of those things are steps we've taken. Clearly we need to do more. I fully support the Home Secretary in taking taking tough action to bring those numbers down, but there are things we have been doing already, and I've given a few examples in terms of my role as Health Secretary before.
Yeah, that focusing very much on care workers and the medical part of it all. But I suppose there are lots of different solutions that are floating around. Suella Braverman wants there to be a cap. I think there was some suggestion from Labour that could be around 200,000. They also want to ban the 20% rule, where foreigners are being paid less than British workers. And Boris Johnson has said he wants to see the salary threshold go up so that British workers aren't being undercut. Why aren't any of these options being put in place? What's the delay? This has been 13 years of Conservative government.
Well, I've just given some examples where rules have been tightened up, but also you asked whether I support the Home Secretary in taking tougher action, and absolutely I do. But there's other things we're doing in government, and one of the things I'm announcing today is about the importance of nature, the importance of people being able to access nature, the launch of a new national park. So I hope, alongside the very important issue of immigration, and I absolutely accept numbers are too high, we need to bring them down, and I support the Home Secretary in looking at various options to do so. I think it's also important to look at some of the other things that really matter to people, and our natural landscape, how we restore nature, how we give people access to nature is really important. And the £25 million they were announcing today to restore 34 habitats is really important. Having disadvantaged children able to access nature with a scheme that we're launching and continuing today. The 2 new community forests in Tees Valley and South Derbyshire will be hugely welcomed in those areas. And it's important that we also look at how we're restoring nature, how we're connecting people to nature, and a really positive set of announcements today in that space too.
I totally agree with you, Steve, on that. We talk about the machinations of politics and whatever, and we could go on forever talking about all these things that we do know about. What we don't know about is what you in your new job as Secretary of State for the Environment is doing there. You're trying to make that connection, and ahead of COP28, I think the more people understand the environment around them, and they love the environment around them, and they want to take care of the environment around them, the better that is for understanding the planet in which we live. But that requires access. And one of the things you're doing here is giving people access now. Can I say to you, since a lot of this land is owned by farmers, do you then get into conversations with farmers and say, look, don't fear the public, or cooperate with the public, and this can all be better for all of us?
No, it's a really important point, and it's about responsible access, and it's also about ensuring that we raise productivity on farms, we take our food security seriously, and we work really constructively with our farmers and landowners. The scheme I was looking at, for example, in Kent, that was restoring chalk streams, really important natural resource, was being done in collaboration, in cooperation with local farmers. And there's a lot we can do to support the farming community, the fishing community, because they're really the backbone of our country, and do so in a way that is sustainable for nature too. Because I know for many people watching this, they care deeply about the environment. And in fact, during COVID, we really saw people re-engage quite often with the environment. Going for those walks, spending time in parks, spending time in green spaces was a really important part of their health and well-being as well. And that's why having an additional national park, there were 270,000 visits, Eamonn, to national parks last year. So having an additional park, having more community forests, making it easier for people to access that, but doing it in a way that is responsible, addresses some of the concerns of landowners, is really important.
Okay. And look, you're talking about the importance of connecting with nature. We are all agreed with that. What about our waterways, our seas and our rivers filled with sewerage? And we did an interview just last week with Fergal Sharkey, who represents Surfers Against Sewerage, and it was brought to our attention that our brand new Environment Secretary is married to an executive in Anglia Water, and it strikes us as a huge conflict of interest. I mean, let's just listen to how Fergal broke that news to us last week.
We have a new Secretary of State for the Environment as of last week, Steve Barclay, and here's an opportunity for Steve Barclay to step up to the plate and stop delivering. Now, I'm sure there's no real connection, but as it transpires, Steve Barclay is married to a senior executive of one of the larger water companies.
So how do you answer that? That's a huge conflict of interest, isn't it?
Well, I think most people realise in the 21st century women are entitled to their own careers and spouses
irrelevant whether
are
she's male or
entitled to their
female,
own
she's
careers.
your
And of course,
partner.
the propriety and ethics, these things are all disclosed. Propriety and ethics have looked at that, and they sort of have cleared all that. So everything has been looked at, everything's transparent. But I want to take a very tough line in terms of the water companies. That's why we put in place unlimited fines. We've got over 90% of sewage overflows now being monitored. By the end of the year, that will be 100%. That's in marked contrast to what the Labour administration has done in Wales, where the majority of sewage overflows are not monitored. The same in Scotland, the majority of them are not monitored. So we've been much more transparent. In 2010, only 7% of sewage overflows were monitored. By the end of this year, it will be 100%, so we can crack down really hard on any water company that is releasing sewage unlawfully. We've got unlimited fines in place. The Environment Agency has got the biggest criminal investigation into water companies, and I've been very clear with them to take a tough line. So we've got the transparency, we've got the monitoring in place, and that's really in contrast to what we've seen from Labour in Wales and the SNP in Scotland, where they don't have that level of transparency. And it's the transparency that allows us to then take the legal action where breaches occur.
OK, Secretary of State for the Environment, thank you very much indeed
Thank you for answering that, Steve Barclay. We'll say goodbye, and we will be talking to Annalise Dodds next.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests, and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
It's just turning 7 o'clock. Welcome to the programme. This is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel. You are very welcome to the programme.
Yes, your thoughts and your comments, always welcome for what we do and the main stories of the day that we cover. What have you got?
Well, rifts are deepening within the Conservative Party over ballooning migration numbers as the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, has taken aim at number 10 over a lack of action.
So we're saying as these migration figures reach 750,000, this is legal migration we're talking about here, we're pointing out, well, who's to blame for this? It's the government, and that's what Jenrick was pointing out himself yesterday. So are these people needed in the country? The answer is probably yes. So why can't the government be honest with us? The only thing is that some 600,000 of legal migrants are
students.
So why do we need them? What are they here for? And the universities certainly need them, but
Well,
There we go.
we're also talking a great deal this morning about the British High Street. It is, of course, the backbone of our community and our economy. But are they under threat is the big debate. We're going to be speaking to Labour in just a few moments about all of that as they announce their plans to save it.
Lovely. OK. Also this morning, besides the British High Street, what comes next?
Well, we have the bombshell book Endgame. It's reignited the Harry and Meghan royal race row, and sales have halted in Holland after a Dutch version seems to identify a family member accused of racism.
Big news coming out of the jungle by the drums. Nigel Farage supporters claim he's been edited out of the programme as ITV come under fire for their tactics towards him. Talking about tactics, Paul Coyte's here. What about Newcastle?
Tactics and being under fire, here I am.
Yeah.
Newcastle are so unlucky. Robbed in Paris against PSG with a last-minute penalty. We'll talk about that. Manchester City come back against Leipzig. Rory McIlroy's made $15 million. $15 million. It's only dollars, though. Hasn't even hit a ball. It's all about social media. That's
Really?
unbelievable. 15
What, just
million.
through doing posts?
Yeah,
As an
they have this
influencer?
thing with the PGA. I mean, I can't believe it. The money that golfers make, and whoever has the most impact on social media will then get a prize of 15 million. And then you've got someone like further down, they get whoever's in 7th gets like 2-3 million just for social media posts.
Gosh.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is amazing.
So you don't
We're
even
in the
matter.
wrong job.
You know what? It doesn't. You don't have to practice your golf. You could be a great golfer. Just practice doing this all the time. A few pictures and stuff.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Unbelievable.
That's where you make your money.
If only we had any skill of doing anything.
I know.
It is.
I'm still hoping that that's going to happen.
Thank you very much indeed. Are you feeling the cold yet?
I am feeling the cold. I'm feeling a little chill. Yeah.
Well, it was chilly.
Wearing the
It
scarf.
was chilly, but not as chilly as I thought. Had my scraper at the ready. I didn't need it, but you might tomorrow. Here's Alex Deacon with a flavour of what's to come.
Another cold one out there today, and it's going to be cold for the rest of this week. Frosty mornings, some fog, and yes, some places seeing some snow. Join me later for a full forecast.
Very much indeed for getting in touch with us this morning on the question of migration. Keith says, stop the rule that says foreigners can be paid less than our own citizens for the same job. It's unfair. Well, it does unbalance the work market, it has to be said.
Dave on the Elgin Marbles says we shouldn't give them back because of where will it stop? Should we give Gibraltar to the Spanish?
We're also going to be talking about useless Christmas presents, because you get to that stage where you think, what is it worth? But I don't know if this present is useless, but it rates at number 4 in the list. Toilet rolls.
Oh, here you are, darling. Merry Christmas. I've got you some bog
What's
roll.
the worst Christmas present you ever got?
I got given a net bag to wash my bras in by my husband.
So, excuse me, what is the purpose of a net bag for
So
your
that
brassieres?
the bra doesn't get tangled in with all your other stuff. So it doesn't damage it. I mean, it's the
Is
worst.
that a thing? Does that happen?
I mean, I've literally never encountered it before. It's very strange, and it was probably.
But he loved you so much.
No, do you know what? He likes to buy lots of little things, but that went down very badly. He now gets me one big thing.
Are you sure the bag was for your bras? It wasn't like a hairnet?
It was like a wash bag or something. I don't know.
It was
awful. What was your worst Christmas present? We would love to hear from you. Send in. What was your worst ever Christmas present?
It wasn't mine. It's what I did to a certain person. I was very, very busy one year, really, really incredibly busy and under huge pressure. Was working in London, was spending Christmas in Ireland, made a phone call to this person and said, look, I'm really sorry, I'm under huge pressure. Do you mind if I just give you cash? Not a problem, darling. Not a problem. You just get yourself home, and that'll be the main thing. So the next day, on Christmas Day, beautiful envelope, golden envelope with a ribbon on it, cash inside, was thrown back at me.
Not enough.
With it. No, it wasn't a question. It was enough. It was like, why not even
Insulting.
a box of milk tray or Maltesers or anything else with it? Just cash. So it was dirty money.
Yeah.
Money was seen as dirty.
It was like you were paying the cleaner or something. You know.
Well, I wish somebody would insult me
With
some
cash. Yeah, me too. Anytime you want to give me cash as a present, I'm in.
GB Views at gbnews.com, or you could tweet at GB News. We're here until 9:30. if you're going out and buying those Christmas presents we were talking about, at least buy them on the high street.
Yeah,
because
don't go online and do it all on...
They need your business, and it's sociable, and you go down and you buy, and anybody who wraps my present can have my business. I will say, I'll buy anything from you. Say, if you're going to wrap it, put a ribbon on it.
I've seen Ruthie
Perfect.
doing her wrapping on the ironing board.
Look, that's not me. That's not me.
I know, but she'll do it for you, surely. I have to do all the wrapping in my house.
She's not going to wrap stuff that I'm buying for her, whatever it is. Why do you come up with these theories for?
What? I'm sure she does all the wrapping for your kids' presents and things. I have to do all the wrapping in the house.
I've got to do my presents for my people who I have. Meanwhile, she's on an ironing board. Why is she on the ironing?
Because you need the space, and then you can have all your gadgets, you can have your ribbon laid out and your sellotape. It's quite the thing Ruthie does. Check out her social.
Ridiculous amount of presents, ridiculous.
Very generous.
No wonder we have no money. Anyway, go down to the high street, get it done for you. The high street, the backbone of your community, and helping to keep the economy up and running. But, of course, in these times, this cost of living crisis, the high street is increasingly under threat.
Yep, and Labour have identified this as a problem, and they say they want to scrap business rates and also legislate to tackle late payments. Let's speak to the Shadow Secretary for Women and Equalities, Annalise Dodds. Good morning to you, Annalise. Just to explain exactly what your plan is in all of this.
Good morning. Well, just as you said, small businesses really are the beating heart of our economy up and down the country. They're what makes our high streets great places to go. They're really, really important employers. But for many small businesses, actually it's got harder and harder to just wash your face financially, and that's been for a variety of reasons that Labour's really determined to tackle. I mean, you talked about business rates. That's a really big problem for lots of bricks and mortar based businesses. Labour would scrap that system of business rates, replace it with something that instead actually promotes economic activity on our high streets. We'd also be tackling late payments, which you also quite rightly mentioned. And you've got a situation at the moment where lots of small businesses are just not being paid on time by big businesses, not because big businesses can't afford to pay them, but because they're using that delay to help with their cash flow. But it's a huge issue for those small businesses, so Labour would go a lot further and faster than the Conservatives have said that they would to tackle that. And I'd just say finally, we'd also be clamping down on antisocial behaviour, because I'm sure a lot of people watching this will know that unfortunately in too many of our town centres it doesn't always feel safe when you want to go and shop, when you want to go and use those small businesses. We've got to take action, so Labour would have those town centre patrols, we'd be bringing back neighbourhood policing and actually getting a grip on this, because otherwise we won't get the economic growth that we need to see from all of those brilliant small businesses.
You want to replace business rates with something else that's going to promote... What was your phrase there? I mean, it was quite ambiguous, and I wasn't really clear exactly what you're going to replace the revenue that you get from business rates with.
Well, the problem at the moment is that, unfortunately, the business rate system, because it's levied on physical premises, so on bricks and mortar, that means that many small businesses, unless they're covered by different exemptions, they're facing potentially, in the long run, a lot of business rate, taxation, essentially. This is quite a big issue because obviously you have to pay it whether or not you're making a profit. You know, it's not like a tax where if times are going well, you're paying more. That's not the case with business rates. It applies across the board. It's a big issue, especially in many of our town centres. And Labour said, we're not going to continue with this situation where we see, you know, the odd little minor reform being made by government 1 year and then a different one another year, still not really getting a grip on the issue. Instead, Rachel Reeves, as our Shadow Chancellor, said she's actually going to be properly scrapping that system, replacing it with something that works better, and where you don't have that unfairness between businesses based in bricks and mortar and businesses that are just based on the internet, where they're ultimately not contributing to that experience that, you know, quite rightly you were just talking about, people having a social experience often when they're using those small businesses on their high streets. You don't get that with the internet.
You use a good word there, Annalise, experience. There's nothing as sad as going through a town or a city and seeing boarded up shops that can't trade anymore, or indeed this proliferation of bookmakers and tanning shops and estate agents and charity shops, and the whole structure of our high streets begin to change as well. I just wonder why you guys, politicians, can't go in and get a free trade zone. The way we've got these trading zones around the country, free ports, that sort of thing, and we make high streets in towns and cities attractive for people to get involved in, because otherwise, how on earth can they, in truth, compete with somebody sitting behind their computer? They order stuff online, it gets delivered to their door, they don't have to worry about parking and things. They miss the experience, Annalise, you're right. The whole experience, the whole Christmas experience of going out there and just feeling the festivities and the compliments of the season and all that. But it's an easier option to sit behind a computer, isn't it, if you don't do something to equal the balance, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, we've seen a situation of drift with a lot of our high streets over the last 13 years. We've not seen that grip to actually focus on them as motors of local economies. You know, I often find if I travel around the country, which I do a lot, that if I go to an area where the high street does have those boarded up shops, you know, that's the kind of canary in the coal mine a lot of the time. And of course, we've seen living standards across our country actually going backwards within the UK. So it's a reflection of those developments. But, you know, Labour's been clear, we will get a grip on these issues. You know, we have set out that plan for small business. We're really serious about this. And, you know, Keir Starmer, as our leader, is really serious about it. And I would just say back, I think it's really important that we don't forget that even in those situations where you've got lots and lots of boarded up shops, you will almost always still find some small businesses that are making a go of it, that every single morning are up and out the door at 6 in the morning, getting the business ready, opening their doors, that are dealing with the antisocial behaviour, which unfortunately is such a big issue in so many of our high streets. They're always going in to try and keep those high streets alive. And, you know, Keir Starmer, in his conference speech to the Labour conference, he said, yes, he sees those shuttered up shops, but he also sees that people are working so hard to try and run their businesses every day and to keep the high streets alive. And I think he's quite right.
Just on the issue of business and just tying it into our top story, we've been talking about the rows within the Tory party about how to deal with the sort of unacceptably high net migration levels. I know that Labour wants to ban this 20% rule where foreigners are effectively paid less. And, you know, I understand why you would say that. You know, it's not fair that British workers are being undercut in this way. But this has an impact on business, doesn't it? And you're effectively saying, right, this is going to be how we solve a bit of the migration problem, but actually it's going to make businesses worse off.
Well, actually, what we really need to do is get a grip on the drivers of this situation, because underneath all of those figures that we've seen over recent days has been an absolutely enormous increase in work visas. So, you know, we've seen it's over a 50% increase in work visas, a 156% increase in health and social care visas. You know, these numbers have been going up so substantially, because I'm afraid there's been a huge failure when it comes to skills policy, when it comes to workforce planning as well. That's just not happened under Conservative governments. And Labour's really clear, we would be working with businesses so that we had that proper UK skills strategy, you know, set out a lot of different policies in that area. We would be radically reforming the apprenticeship levy, for example, really getting that to work for businesses so that we would have that homegrown talent for people of all backgrounds in our country, so that they could be playing their part, and so we didn't have this big increase in work visas that we've seen under the Conservatives.
OK.
Annalise, there's a list in the papers today about the worst Christmas gifts that people have ever received. I don't know if anything springs to mind, but I'll help you here. 22% of people say they are gifted toilet rolls at Christmas. Very useful, but maybe not the most desirable thing. People talk here about hair removal cream, a mop and a bucket, a can of WD-40. Re-gifted stuff doesn't go down well as well. Vouchers that are expired. I don't know the point of that, but have you ever had anything that's been horrible or that you've given and you think, this doesn't work, I'll not go down this road again?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned toilet paper. Novelty, in inverted commas, toilet paper seemed to be quite a thing a few years ago, didn't it? With different messages written on it, which was an interesting one.
Tell us what the messages were.
Oh goodness, I can't remember. Well, there's been a few political variants, hasn't there? I'll have to be careful with what I say here.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But I think also I have received pairs of tights. Now that's
I want to hear more about
nice,
the toilet paper you've been gifted.
But it's a little bit.
Well, you're not alone. Everybody's in there. But thanks very much, Annalise Dodds. Really appreciate it. Good talking to you this morning. Thank you.
Right, we're going to cross to Westminster, back to Westminster, but to our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. First, some reaction, I suppose, to both of the rounds that we've done this morning with Annalise Dodds and also with Steve Barclay, before we get into the whole Robert Jenrick, the immigration minister, row this morning. Catherine.
Yes, well, Steve Barclay, who of course was Health Secretary and now is Environment Secretary, pointing out the levy on NHS workers to bring more money into the NHS, saying yes, they need to get numbers down, not going really far beyond that. And Annalise Dodds pointing, as she would after 13 years of Conservative government, on basically saying this is completely on the government and pointing specifically to what they say is a failure in terms of skills training, in terms of making sure that we have British people that are willing and able to do these jobs. So, yes, I mean, Labour have said they will get the numbers down, but, people heard that for 13 years about the Conservatives. So let's see if and when they get into power.
OK, Catherine, thank you very much indeed. We'll leave it there. The time's 17 minutes past 7 o'clock. And the reviews are pouring in for Omid Scobie's new book, Endgame, Inside the Royal Family and the Monarchy's Fight for Survival. That's the title.
So catchy.
I think we should just call it Endgame and leave it at that. Anyway, so, well, a lot of controversy about all of this, and Scobie has been forced to deny that he names the royal accused of questioning Archie's skin colour. Apparently there are two royals in this one. This is because the Dutch edition of the book was taken off the shelves when they have erroneously printed names, we are told.
Well, let's speak to the royal commentator, Michael Cole, who joins us this morning. Michael, good morning to you. This must be an absolute nightmare for the royal family. You just can't escape it. It's everywhere this morning for the second day in a row.
Yeah, good morning, Isabel. Good morning, Eamonn. You've summarised this story brilliantly, of course. The question must be, was it a publishing error in Holland or was it a publicity stunt? If it was the latter, that would be disgraceful because the charge of racism is a pernicious one. It's easy to make and it's extremely difficult to refute because you have to prove a negative. You may remember, Isabel, that this all began in the interview that Oprah Winfrey conducted with Meghan Markle last year. And during that, Meghan said, revealed that somebody had spoken to her husband, Prince Harry, and had questioned the colour of the skin of any children Harry and Meghan may have in the future. Now, you remember that Miss Oprah Winfrey then said, what? This stagey dropping of the jaw. And of course, one has to remember that Oprah Winfrey and both Meghan were both actresses in their former life. Then Prince Harry, who we see here in happier times, he came onto the set and he looked very embarrassed when this matter was raised. And he said that he would always remember what happened, but he would never, ever name who was involved. Now, this new book, the second book, has doubled down. Not just, as Eamonn said, not one person within the royal circle raising this skin colour question, but two. One has to wonder when the law of diminishing returns kicks in. And the other question must be, who is Omid Scobie, who we're talking about? Well, he's 42, although at one time he claimed to be 6 years younger. He was born in Wales. His mother is Iranian, his father is Welsh. He was brought up in Oxford, went to fee-paying schools, studied journalism, and he wrote gossip pieces about celebrities and royals. And then, of course, he met the Sussexes, or they met him. Everything he writes is seen through a Sussex prism. He says he's not the spokesperson, megaphone, or mouthpiece for the Sussexes. But in this book, and there we see it in all its loveliness, the only people who come out unscathed are the Sussexes.
Right. Well, that begs the question, Michael, doesn't it? You know, if the royal couple, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, would like to distance themselves from this, or indeed, you know, squash it, they could do very easily. All they have to do is say, we had nothing to do with this, we disapprove, and it's done, it's gone. But silence, do you think that's speaking volumes?
I think that's a very good point. It's a crucial point. Without any trouble at all, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex in their hilltop fortress out in California could distance themselves. They could deny this. They could say that they were not involved and that they do not hold the views that Mr. Omid Scobie is proposing, because essentially what he's saying in this book, and Eamonn read the whole title of it, he's saying that the present incumbents of the royal family are really unworthy. They should stand aside and preside over the end of a monarchy that has gone on pretty well uninterrupted for more than 1,000 years. That's what he's saying. Now, who is Omid Scobie? Why are we talking about him? Well, he's a brilliant publicist because he's on almost every front page this morning, and we're devoting valuable time on your brilliant station to talking about him. These matters are very difficult. The book has been described as being poisonous, vicious, venomous, nasty, and all of that stuff. And it's difficult for the royal family to respond to it. They will choose, I'm sure, not to respond to it. But the good point, which is the one you made, Isabel, is that the Sussexes, if they cared about their family, would actually put a stop to this.
What about the Waleses? I mean, we talk about the Sussexes and the relationship between father and son. What about the relationship between the father and the Prince of Wales, William, with this one? Scobie suggests that they have been brought closer together, with Harry being a common enemy for them.
Well, I don't believe that is true. I mean, the king will never say never. Harry is his son, and he will never be cast out. There's always a place for the prodigal son in any scenario, in any family. That's the tragedy of it all, you know, Eamonn, because the person who would be most upset about this is no longer with us, sadly. Princess Diana would be absolutely, she would be so sad to see her sons at loggerheads with no hope of any reconciliation, not after all the things that have been said and done, and all gratuitous, all unnecessary, all horrible, because there are people out there struggling, and they're looking at the Sussexes with all their privilege. They're good-looking people. They've got two healthy, happy, beautiful children. They've got more money than we can even consider. They've got people at their beck and call. They've got a life of unimaginable privilege, and yet they seem to find fault with everything, and it's one long complaint. Well, it's not very attractive to ordinary people. People have to pick their sides.
Yeah.
But if
I just wanted to ask one final question. You know, you were asking earlier, who is Omid Scobie? And I Googled him and looked at pictures of him, and he looks unrecognisable from when he was growing up. And it does strike me, somebody who is so fixated and appears to be making a lot of money off the back of hypothesising over what colour somebody's skin was, there's lots of speculation that he himself has undergone skin lightening treatment, which I think is a curious twist in all of this.
That's an extremely important question. I mean, when we're talking about racism with Oprah Winfrey, I mean, she goes on air with about a pound of white powder on her face, as far as I can see. But the thing I did find out about Omid Scobie is that he apparently lives in a flat in East London with a French bulldog. Now, we don't know the name of the bulldog, but perhaps if it's French, Perhaps it's Max, after Maximilian Robespierre, you know, the French revolutionary who presided over the death of King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette. We don't know. But here we are talking about him. But I think, to go back to your point, Isabel, and I think it's the crucial one, the Sussexes, if they have any sense of duty to the royal family, within which they are still HRH bearing that title, they should take steps very urgently and very definitely to say that this is not the view, their view, that is being expressed through this book, through Mr. Scobie.
Okay.
Michael Cole, royal expert. Thank you. That's fascinating listening to you, Michael. Thanks very much indeed. We've got to leave it there. I'm talking about skin whitening. You've undergone skin whitening.
Have I?
I've noticed today. Look, you've scrubbed away yesterday.
I haven't scrubbed. I've just bathed every day since I got back.
To get rid of this?
No, just my normal washing routine.
She had this henna tattoo.
It's called a Mendy, I was informed by my daughter.
Oh, well, it's only half a Mendy now.
Yeah.
This bit's all gone here, and then this bit stays.
Exactly. Yeah,
but,
I'm obviously washing better there. Anyway, yes, this is from Morocco, my weekend in Morocco. Do you like it?
Morocco?
No, my Mendy.
Whatever.
Pass.
Well,
the backstory is I was in the famous square in Morocco, in Marrakesh, and I got accosted. I didn't ask for it, and she tricked me into it. And before too long, I had a whole hand painted, and then she chased us to pay for it.
When we were
But it was all
kids,
part of the fun.
you used to be able to buy transfers for tattoos.
Yeah, you can still do that.
Can you still do that?
Yeah, yeah.
On it, and,
Well, my kids are like, oh, is that permanent, Mummy?
yes.
No, but I don't know how much longer.
OK, Nigel Farage in the jungle. Have you been watching? Have you been seeing as much of him as you thought you would? His time in the jungle. How's it shaping up? Ben Deal with that next.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests, and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll just say, why did ITV book Nigel Farage when they
cost them a lot?
Yeah. But is he not playing the game that they wanted him to play, being outrageous or whatever? But let's go to Ben Leo on the Gold Coast today. A lot of complaints coming in, people saying, Nige, where is he? So tell us more, my friend.
Good morning, Eamonn. Good morning, Isabel. So there's a story breaking in the last couple of hours on the Daily Express website, essentially saying that ITV News this weekend, to coincide with the first eviction vote in the I'm a Celebrity jungle, that ITV were planning to drop a story that accuses Nigel Farage of recording a video on the video service Cameo, which, if viewers don't know what that is, it's, long story short, it's a video service where you can pay £75 to get a celebrity to record a message of your choice. You write the script and they read it out. So 2 years ago, Nigel is accused of recording a video which contained an offensive word, which ITV News say was racist, and they were planning to reveal this in a news story this weekend to coincide with the I'm a Celebrity vote. I'm just going to read you verbatim Nigel's team, which says, and it's a fairly lengthy one, so bear with me. It says, over the last few years, Nigel has filmed over 4,000 Cameo messages for fans and supporters. This includes videos for people's weddings, birthdays, stag do's, in-jokes between friends, and even people who are ill in hospital. When Nigel first joined Cameo, there was a concerted effort by Remain supporters to hijack the platform to embarrass Nigel by getting him to read out obscure rude words and in-jokes between friends. It is widely reported that some of these slipped through the net, as Nigel is a classic boomer dad. In the video, Nigel was asked by a customer on Cameo to read a message they had written for a friend. Had Nigel known that the message he was asked to read contains an obscure, offensive word, he would not have made the video. That's the statement. One of the key issues for Farage is ITV News have come to GB News and Farage's team for comment from Nigel, but of course he's locked away in the jungle. He has no access to his phone, to his lawyers, to us at GB News or to his team. So that's what's happened overnight. In the show last night, curiously, the show was extended by 15 minutes at the very last minute to include what we believe was this row between Nigel and YouTuber Nella Rose about cultural appropriation. This is the moment.
Why do they say water like that? Is it like a joke or something? We say it. We go put it in the water. It's patois. It's the Jamaican version of saying water. They say water.
You got to boil your water, and they say your water.
In fact, if you sang that, they'd call it cultural appropriation, Fred. They would. No, they would.
I know, but everybody's doing my accent.
I know.
Is it cultural appropriation?
I know. It's when suits. They criticise when suits.
What do you mean, Nigel?
If a white person has a black accent, that's considered to be a crime. You know, they should be cancelled.
It depends in what context. If you're taking the then you're taking the but if you're not, then you're not.
So you can't, sort of can't win territory.
Nah, it just depends on the context.
When we were talking about it, he was saying, like, it's just about the population, but the way that he's, like, promoted that in his work has just been a bit inhumane almost, you know what I mean? And it's like, hang on.
So just in relation to the story on has gone back to ITV News asking a series of questions. We've not heard anything back yet. And in terms of the show, Nigel has been voted to do tonight's Bush Tucker trial. So all eyes on that episode tonight.
So can't complain anymore. He's going to be on air tonight. Ben, thanks very much indeed. Let's go through all the sports now. We have Paul Coit in with us.
Hello.
Hello.
Paris Saint-Germain.
And VAR.
Oh, goodness me. Newcastle was so unlucky because, I mean, I did predict a couple of weeks ago that Newcastle would go over to PSG and get slaughtered by PSG.
Yeah.
But I did. I'll put my hands up. I really did think that was going to happen. But Newcastle were terrific, and they went 1-0 up and then went right through to the 97th minute. And you've got this pressure from Paris Saint-Germain just onwards and onwards and onwards. And eventually...
97th minute.
97th minute and a dodgy penalty. It really was a dodgy penalty.
Who wants to watch football for 97 minutes, you know?
Oh, I do, don't you?
No.
Do you know what's wrong with you?
90 minutes. I want to finish 90 minutes and maximum a minute extra time.
You've had Fergie time for your entire career. You must have enjoyed watching football going into the 97th minute.
I mean, come on. 91, 92, 93, maybe.
3.
But 90, this went to 98 minutes.
It did.
Or so.
It went too long. And basically a ball came up and it was driven against Tino Livramento's chest and then bounces up on his arm.
Yeah.
It hits here, bounces up, and they give a penalty. And it was just very unfair. But the way we're looking at it now is that Newcastle are going to be at home to AC Milan next, which they have to win. Paris Saint-Germain are away at Borussia Dortmund, who lead, and if they don't win, then Newcastle will progress.
Yeah, so basically fighting this... I mean, they're all... Newcastle are 5 points. AC Milan, I think, have got 5 points as well.
Yeah, it's you know, it's all very close to them. They're all very close. If they'd have won, and we were so close, they would have been virtually there. But it's
basically,
still a chance.
Newcastle are fighting it out with PSG for that qualification place.
Yeah, that's the way we're looking at the moment.
Okay.
That's the way we're looking. Man City, though, played Leipzig were 2-0 up. Man City came back and won 3-0. And Celtic are out of Europe, unfortunately. They lost as well. But Man United have got, I mean, it's a huge game for Man United. Away at Galatasaray, Turkey tonight.
Let's go to horse racing and the use of the whip.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. You know, I'd be interested, maybe we should do this tomorrow and get a jockey or someone involved in horse racing more. Alex Edward, because there's a rule on the whip that you can only use a whip in over the jumps 7 times throughout the race. Now, there's never been a disqualification through it, and it was brought in at the start of the year. 8,000 races. First time there's been a disqualification. Alex Edwards, he used the whip 16 times on the horse. So they're obviously counting. But what I find difficult to understand is that why, if you have a limit at 6 or 7, why even use it at all? I know there's always going to be jockeys and people in racing saying how important it is. This is jumps is 7, over the flat is 6. So that's how many times that a jockey can decide to use the whip on the horse. Then I've spoken to jockeys before and they say, oh yeah, the whip doesn't hurt. Well, why is it limited? And also, if it is limited, why don't they just have it simple and then just get rid of the whips altogether? I know it's a bigger picture and a bigger story. But anyway, he's been suspended for 24 days. Fee's been forfeited. And also he's been given specialised coaching. So I don't know if it's specialised coaching, only to use it.
Well, that's education with the whip, isn't it?
That's what it is. Only use it 6 times.
Fireworks at Boca Juniors.
Yeah, this is Argentinian football. This is an interesting one. And Boca Juniors were playing Godoy Cruz in Argentina in the last minute of normal time. Boca Juniors are 2-1 up. And then fans are thinking we're 2-1 down. Have a look at this. Look at this. Now, these are the fireworks that came from the fans. Probably, I don't know whether it's a celebration. Incredible. I don't think it's terribly sensible to be able to...
That's an inferno.
And then that's it. They're being launched from the stands. So there's like this huge firework display. Now, I don't know whether they're probably thinking we're 2-1 down, we've got a minute left, there'd be no extra time of 7 minutes in this one. So maybe if we get the game called off, who knows why they were doing it, but it was 2 minutes worth.
An artillery.
I mean, look at it.
Bombardment. That's incredible.
2 minutes. Nobody was injured, thank goodness.
Why would they have brought all those fireworks to the match anyway?
I have absolutely
no idea. They were going to use... I mean,
Where is this?
This is in Argentina. See, I don't know whether they brought them thinking, well, just in case we are losing, then we can try and launch these and then get the game.
Imagine being amongst that. That is absolutely mad.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm terrified of holding a sparkler. So, I mean, quite frankly, if I was there, I'd be running for the hills. But they did... So 2 minutes this went on for, and then they did come back out and finish the game. and it stayed as it was, and everybody went home. But look at it. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
I know Egypt's trying to do this in the English Premier League as well. You know,
with the flares.
The old time. Yeah, and I've heard matches recently, you know, TV go into this stupid zone where they don't commentate on noises that are going on around the ground.
It's like the streakers.
Because they don't want to give it publicity like the streakers.
You know what? Am I wrong?
There's a streaker.
I used to love seeing a streaker there at the football.
Do they still happen then?
Yes, there was one in Disneyland yesterday or the day before.
Probably Disneyland is not the place I would be happy to see a streaker.
Yeah, no,
football, I wouldn't mind so much.
It's a small world.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a small world, apparently. This guy jumped in.
Did they say?
It's a small world.
It's a small something, after all.
And he jumped in.
Did he?
Yeah, he jumped in. And,
what, in the water?
And then they sent a riot squad to take him away. It was like...
Oh, for goodness sake.
The worst, yes.
Oh, my goodness me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes,
So anyway... But do you remember there was, I remember at the rugby years, it was Erica Rowe, and then there was the famous guy that ran on at the cricket at Lords, jumped over the stumps. I think it was the stumps anyway, and and hit the middle wicket.
So
that's gone there. That's not him.
You have an appreciation of streaking.
I do have an appreciation of a streak.
Have you ever been tempted to streak?
I've never really been attempted to streak as yet. But you know what? Can you imagine the moment though, if you're going to think, right, I'm going to do it, I'm going to go for it, and then make the run.
Well, you get to be in a stadium in front of tens of thousands quite often, once a week at least.
I do.
70, 80,000 people. There you are.
Yes.
You've got a perfect opportunity.
Fully dressed. You think all of a sudden
I think we should see if we
start swinging it around.
GBNews
I'm talking about the jacket there and the shirt.
Too much for me.
It is too much for me. I can't even believe I've been drawn into this, quite frankly.
Thank you, my friends.
It is a small one. Thank you very much.
8:20 this morning. You've got an interview.
Well, I hope I'll be back after that. Yeah.
So tell us about the boxing.
Yes, Chris Smith. He is the world cruiserweight champion, fights in Bournemouth, and you know what he's going to do? He's going to fight on a Sunday because all the Bournemouth fans are going to be up at Old Trafford on the Saturday night. Yeah. So everybody can see him fight. He's going to fight on a Sunday night next weekend.
Okay.
He's a terrific fella.
Good man.
Good man.
Thank you very much indeed.
Still to come, we're going to go through some of the worst Christmas presents. You guys have come in with some brilliant ones. Caroline says, my mother was gifted a Pyrex dish from her sister-in-law. Fair enough. When she took the lid off, there was a label inside that said second prize. What about this one?
You'd rather not have anything, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's so insulting. Sylvie, my worst Christmas present was corn plasters in my stocking. That's with those nasty corns on your feet from my husband. Oh, Sylvie, who said romance was dead?
Yeah.
Keep them coming. These are good. More after this.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only three people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, we're going through the stories that'll get you talking today with Alex Armstrong and Anna Mikalova. Very nice to see both of you. Alex, you want to start with a host for Have I Got News For You, which is creating a bit of controversy.
Yeah, the BBC seem to continue their sort of out-of-touch spad of bringing people on board to their programmes that are just, you know...
On the edge.
On the edge.
But he is on the edge. But the problem here is he's deemed to be anti-Israeli.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's made some very, very provocative tweets, you know, about ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. He's obviously very, very pro-Palestinian, not very balanced, particularly from, you know, what happened on October 7th. He's made no condemnation of any of those events. You know, Gus Khan is the guy we're talking about here, and, you know, he got famously dropped from Uber Eats campaign for making racially charged comments about Priti Patel all the way back in 2020. And it's baffling to me that the BBC invite these people onto these political shows where they know they're going to make off-the-cuff statements, as that happens on Have I Got News For You. Is it just so out of touch, you know?
But it's not a news programme, you know. It's not in the business of cancelling people.
Actually scripted, because I'm always amazed how everyone's really funny, but then someone said everything's just written for you. So.
I just, you know, for me, I just feel like the timing to have someone like this on the show is really off.
It will be heavily edited, it has to say. But what always amazes me about Have I Got News For You, that when it comes to the top earners of the BBC, they escape all the time because they're an independent company made by Hat Trick Productions. But they've been going for some, I don't know, 20-odd years or so. And it's Paul Merton and who's the other guy? Who's the...
Mitchell. Ian Hislop?
No.
Sorry. Yes, Ian Hislop. Yeah.
Ian Hislop. Yeah. And I'll tell you, their fees are massive.
I'm sure.
Massive, right? I know what they are, but I'm not going to say.
Getting good Christmas present for everyone.
But the point is that you always hear Gary Lineker's the top earner at the BBC. No, he's not. And it is incredible, and they get away under the radar all the time with this sort of thing. So there you are. Right, Anna. The Crown we're going to talk about. And what's got you with The Crown this time?
So they've released... So, you know, this time they're releasing the episodes sort of half and half, and they've just released the promo shoots for the next stage, which goes into William and Kate's relationship. And, of course, the famous scene at university where she sashayed down a runway, a catwalk, dressed in a sheath.
Camera, do you want this on?
And I think famously she picked that outfit. It was meant to be a skirt, but she chose to wear it as a dress. So I think we'll see. Meg Bellamy, who's the actress.
So it was a skirt and she pulled it the whole way. It's a sheer thing.
So she covered her midriff.
It was meant to be a skirt. It was a charity fashion show. It was meant to be a skirt, and as she was then, Kate Middleton decided, because she obviously has an eye for fashion, she decided, no, I'm going to wear this as a dress, and it was, as you can see, quite. It took. I think what was the quote William was meant to have sent? Like 4. I mean, it was There was a sort
It was
of
to get
warm
his attention.
moment.
That's
wasn't
right.
it?
That was
That's
the
right.
moment he fell for her.
No, my memory of this, and I may well be wrong, is that they were going out together and then he went out with someone else and this was to lure him back again.
Well, I think they definitely already knew each other. I think.
Yes.
That was
Well, they lived together, didn't they? I don't know. It's all a bit
and
of
it
a
made
blur.
them look at her in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it would, perhaps.
I would myself. Very good.
Steady on.
It would work for me.
Should we talk about the Elgin marbles? Have we got time? We've got to get to Christmas presents. Let's give Christmas presents a decent airing. We haven't got ages and ages, so let's talk about the top 40 or the bottom 40
Worst ever Christmas presents. So some of these are obviously terrible, like weed killer, a mop and a bucket.
WD-40.
Yeah. Although it is extremely useful. So,
but do you want useful things for Christmas? That's the question.
Some people do, and some of these, I have to say, so these are obviously people complaining. They've been asked, what are the worst Christmas presents? Some of them sound quite moany to me. So someone's complaining about if you gave them something they've given you the previous year. Which, what's wrong with that? Surely, if you give me a candle, that means you like candles. I'll give you a candle back.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Whether it's the exact same present, though, I wouldn't want that. Yeah. Do you know what I do love, though? And it's on this list, a pair of socks. I'm
and
ecstatic
shoe
about
polish.
that.
I've definitely given my dad shoe polish for Christmas.
Oh,
I'm ecstatic about the socks, though.
The thing is, people don't like the idea of practical things. Maybe some people do. I mean, so if I bought you, Anna, say, a set of car mats,
right.
Something.
Well,
do you know what I
have
mean?
a car, so that might be problematic.
Oh, right.
But useful.
My dad's the hardest person on the planet to buy for. He doesn't like anything we give him, apart from a book. He's always happy with a book, but we try to break out of the book cycle. And I actually missed his birthday recently. I didn't get him a present, and I was scratching my head, what shall I do? And my brother tipped me off that he really wanted a contraption to help him open jars, because he's got sort of slightly arthritic hands now, 75. And it was, I don't know, don't listen, Dad, press mute, but it was £5 or something like that. Yeah. Absolutely delighted. Best present I ever gave him. Over the moon.
I mean, I would be super offended if someone gave me hair removal cream. That's a statement to you, isn't it? That's a statement, I think.
That could well be. Yeah. The thing about, you know, I hear this all the time with men. Oh, what do you get him? He's got everything.
Hard.
It's not. You treat men like children.
Yeah.
Men,
sweeties.
Toys. Men like toys. They like gadgets. They like remote controls. They like, you know, what are those things? Drones. They like tanks. They like, honestly.
I love it. That's great. I got a drone last year. I was over the moon. Over the moon.
Yeah, but the thing is, those things for adults aren't cheap. Like an actual proper drone's £300.
No, wait a minute.
Your kids can't buy
They're
you
toys. Have you bought me a remote-controlled tank? Like a pretty big one.
I'm not spending £300.
I didn't say it would cost £300. A tank that'll go...
Ridiculous.
What's wrong with that?
If you're lucky, you'll get a framed photo of us.
Oh, we get it of us then, not of me. It's of us.
You want a picture of yourself?
So you want to send me a picture of you?
Of us? No?
Save yourself the 10 quid
fine.
on it.
I've actually got quite a good idea for your birthday this weekend, but I'm not going to divulge. You have to wait. We'll talk about it next week.
I'm getting a present, aren't I?
Well, maybe. I'm a bit disorganised because I needed to give it to you today. Anyway, that's a long story. Let's check on the weather. Alex Deacon's going to tell us it's getting really cold.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. The cold spell continues, a frosty start for many, and we've seen a covering of snow in places. We've still got sleet and snow showers coming in this morning over northern and eastern Scotland, southeast Scotland, northeast England. Could be quite icy out there this morning as well. Well, we've got those showers, and there's a few fog patches to be wary of. A bit more cloud across the south, 1 or 2 rain showers here, but that cloud breaking up through the morning. So actually, for most of us, a fine day. Yes, it's going to be cold, 2 or 3 degrees for quite a few of us, but there will be plenty of sunshine. Temperatures a little higher across the south and southwest. With the clouds sticking around in the far southwest, and we'll continue with some showers here through the evening and overnight. There'll be rain showers here initially, but more sleet and snow showers coming into the northeast. So again, things could well turn icy. And even in the south, we could just see a little bit of snow coming in over the moors in particular. For many, though, it's another dry, clear night, so another frosty start tomorrow morning. If anything, a little colder. Temperatures more widely down to -3 or -4. And again, some mist and fog patches. Thursday's a bit of a mishmash, again, for quite a few of us, just dry, fine and sunny, but more cloud in the south with some outbreaks of mostly rain on the south coast, but if it's a little further north, could provide some sleet and snow for a time. Further wintry showers keeping coming along some of those North Sea coasts. And again, it's going to be another pretty cold one with temperatures 3 or 4 at best.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, stay with us. Coming up at 8 o'clock.
Stay with us, because I've got a new phone and I don't want a new phone.
He's had it for a few weeks. It's caused a few,
I've had it for
dilemmas.
a week. It's ridiculous. I mean, so I had a phone that then asked me, an Android phone that asked me for a password that I'd never given it in the first place.
I wish you hadn't got a new phone.
So
I've heard so much about it.
So I couldn't then get into it. So then I get what everybody else has got, was one of these blooming Apple things, and it's so difficult.
I know. It's all right. Well, to give you a little tip in the break, we've got to go, because in a moment... A
present will be good, a nice case for
Oh, that's OK.
Yes, it's something that's...
A rows brewing in the Conservative Party over, you guessed it, immigration details in a sec.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
Affects us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, very nice to see you. 8 o'clock on the dot. Wednesday, 29th of November. You're very welcome to breakfast here on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. Rifts are deepening within the Conservative Party over ballooning migration numbers as the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, has taken aim at number 10 over what he calls a lack of action. The Environment Secretary, Steve Barclay, told us earlier that he accepts more needs to be done.
Clearly we need to do more. I fully support the Home Secretary in taking tough action to bring those numbers down, but there are things we have been doing already.
We're talking high streets today, backbone of so many communities and the economy, but what is the situation? How much in crisis are they?
The bombshell book Endgame has reignited the Harry and Meghan royal race row. Sales have been halted in Holland after a Dutch version seemed to identify a family member accused of racism.
Big news coming out of the jungle. Nigel Farage supporters claim he has been edited out of the programme. ITV come under increasing criticism.
And Paul Coit is here with all your sport.
I am. Newcastle United are robbed in Paris. Manchester United have got to win in Turkey tonight, and also the WBA Cruiserweight Champion of the World. Chris Billings-Smith will be with us.
Oh, excellent.
How about that?
Excellent.
Yeah.
Do you get any tickets for the fight?
Well, this is the plan. I thought we'll get him on and then we'll be able to
Get him
go.
on, we'll get a couple of
next
tickets for
Sunday
the
we'll be
fight.
there.
That's
Ringside.
good.
How about that?
Well, it'll be hot action, but it's a frosty week ahead. Alex Deacon with your weather picture.
Another cold one out there today, and it's going to be cold for the rest of this week. Frosty mornings, some fog, and yes, some places seeing some snow. Join me later for a full forecast.
Keep those terrible Christmas presents coming in. My husband bought me a nose strip to keep me from snoring last year, says Sam. He's been testing my patience for the last 6 years.
Very useful.
Katie says...
Who is that? Sam?
Yeah.
Sam, you don't know what it's like to sleep beside you. That's the thing.
Katie says, I got my brother-in-law Sudoku toilet roll for Christmas years ago. He loved it. So what, you sit on the loo...
And play a game.
And you maybe that's what Annalise Dodds was talking about.
You see,
she said she'd got toilet roll and she was very coy about revealing what was on it.
A face of Rishi Sunak, I would have thought. But you see, this gets me about toilets. Toilets are a place, you have a very nice loo, you have it very well decorated, and there's lots of little things that you go into your loo and you look around and you go, that's nice, nice picture there as well, that's very good. But basically, loos are somewhere that I just have this thing. You get in and you get out as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no dilly-dallying.
People who are sitting doing Sudoku puzzles on their toilet roll.
Messaging people on their phones.
Sitting there.
People do that.
With
People
their
drop their
trousers around
phones
their
down the loo.
ankles. No.
Okay, it's 8 o'clock. People are eating their cornflakes. Anyway, send us your worst ever Christmas presents. We also want to hear from you this morning about baked beans. Did you know that they haven't been in the UK before until now? How do you do yours? What else are we asking people to talk about this morning?
What have they not been grown in the UK? Yeah. No.
And now we're getting
gonna,
British baked
We're
beans.
going to grow our own baked beans. Apparently that is a big thing. And how do you like your beans? Do you like them in the morning? I'm not a fan of them in the morning. I like them at tea time, which is dinner for you.
Supper.
It's tea time. Supper. Supper. Supper's something you have at 10 o'clock at night.
I just call it supper, so shoot me. Anyway, join in. What do you call it? What do you call it?
It's for your tea.
For your tea.
Okay.
Okay, that's when you drink a tea.
Beans on toast. gbviews@gbnews.com. Do you think tea's at 4?
Tea is, a cup of tea with a biscuit maybe, or...
So snobby.
No, how is that snobby? You're being a snob by saying that tea...
Shh. Now, this migration situation this morning, divisions within government show no sign of abating.
Well, appearing in the Commons yesterday, the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, has since been accused of breaching what is supposed to be cabinet collective responsibility after blasting his own government's inability to cut migration.
This is legal migration we're talking about. Jenrick's comments come as a number of Conservative MPs are frustrated by the growing levels of this after figures have revealed net migration hit a record high last year.
Well, we've been speaking to the Environment Secretary, Steve Barclay, this morning. He told us that the government's made progress but admits more needs to be done.
We've already taken action in terms of student dependence. Closing that route will reduce the number by 150,000. As Health Secretary, I increased the immigration surcharge so that those coming in are paying more to contribute to the NHS. But all of those things are steps we've taken. Clearly we need to do more. I fully support the Home Secretary in taking tough action to bring those numbers down. But there are things we have been doing already.
Sorry. Carry on.
If people only knew what we were talking about when government ministers come on air. Not about him, but something else, anyway. But you are. You are.
The giggles.
You know you are.
I'm not, and it's going to really annoy me.
Don't even say what I've accused you of.
Well,
don't even say it. Right. But Labour say the whole problem with this migration thing is poor planning by the Conservatives. This is the Labour reaction.
Actually, what we really need to do is get a grip on the drivers of this situation, because underneath all of those figures that we've seen over recent days has been an absolutely enormous increase in work visas. So, we've seen it's over a 50% increase in work visas, a 156% increase in health and social care visas. These numbers have been going up so substantially, because I'm afraid there's been a huge failure when it comes to skills policy, when it comes to workforce planning as well. That's just not happened under Conservative governments.
I've gone again, sorry.
What? So she's criticising me because I asked Annalise Dodds...
What's on her toilet roll?
What's on her toilet roll?
While she was talking about serious matter. Sorry, I've gone.
But what's the Sudoku quiz?
Yeah, but you were just saying, tell us what's on your toilet roll.
But the fact that she wouldn't tell us what was on it meant that there was something on it.
Yes.
Yeah, anyway.
It's really difficult when you start to get giggly, sorry.
Charlie Riley is in the studio. Charlie knows all about these things, not toilet rolls, but he was a special advisor to Michael Gove and friend of the programme, political analyst Leon Emirali, here with this one.
Have you missed us, Leon? It's been a while.
I have.
All this nonsense.
I'm laughing. I'm missing you deeply. I'm glad to see the nonsense hasn't stopped.
But Leon, how is this legal migration business? If we didn't need these people, we wouldn't be inviting them into the country. So my whole thing, Leon and Charlie, is what's going to happen if they say, right, we'll get these numbers down? These aren't the numbers they need to get down, surely, Charlie.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. I think people conflate sometimes the illegal migration, which obviously is stopping the boats, and the roundup policy, which obviously has its own issues there, and legal migration. And I think, look, it's been a long-term Conservative Party commitment in every manifesto that I can recall, certainly since 2015, even when David Cameron came in. He wanted to cut the number of people coming into this country from the hundreds of thousands to the tens of thousands.
But was it not deliberate policy under Labour, under Tony Blair's Labour, to get more and more people from elsewhere into the country, the theory being they would vote Labour, they would be so thankful they would vote Labour at the end of the day?
Well, there's lots of changes taking place between lots of the parties, because you've got to fight elections on the centre ground, and depending on where the centre ground is and what the public generally view about migration. I mean, I think this particular one is, I think, a little bit difficult, because there's a number of people in the Conservative Party that are focused on the numbers, of getting the numbers down. But actually, if you see it through the prism of having a conversation on the doorstep with people who say, oh, the numbers are far too high, if you say, perhaps on this particular occasion, that, well, the numbers are high, but the people that are coming into this country are predominantly healthcare workers. They're working in adult social care. These are jobs that need to be filled. These are jobs that are not being taken up. There are far too many vacancies. That is only going to be a good thing, I think. And I think the conversation becomes slightly more nuanced on the doorstep. But it's the conflict between having that conversation with someone on the doorstep and people that are just obsessed with the numbers.
Yeah, but Leon, Charlie there talking about how people conflate legal and illegal migration. That's a deliberate policy on behalf of the government, though, isn't it? They like to kind of distract us always and make out that the big problem with migration is these people illegally coming across, but actually it's the ones that they are letting in. And again, Charlie talks about it predominantly being healthcare workers. The actual figures, out of the 745,000 in the last year, 643 of those have been students. And I think there has to be more of an open debate about why we're inviting so many students. Yes, they're very lucrative for the institutions, but what does this actually mean if we've got a new city of Cambridge or a new city of Glasgow coming into the country every year?
It's a fair question, Isabel, but on students in particular, I think what I'd say is that the UK doesn't export much these days, but one thing we are very good at exporting is our education. And I think actually the UK has got a global reputation as being a leader in university education. Our universities are known around the world for it. And I think when these students do come to the UK, that is an export because we're selling it around the world. And I think if we were to lose that, if we were to make it harder for foreign students to come here, then there will be a legitimate question as to what that means for an important industry for the country that supports a lot of domestic jobs as well, let alone the contribution that the students make. So I think that's a slightly slippery slope of an argument, because once you start getting there, then we do look at the economic impact of that quite considerably. But one thing I would say, there is a great unsaid in politics about immigration, which is that we do rely on it because we haven't got the skill set in this country to deliver on those vital and important jobs. And until that happens, we're going to continue to have big numbers of migration because it's required.
Yeah, and Charlie, then, this 5 million people who are unemployed, when people turn around and say, why aren't we getting our own people in to do these jobs? They don't want to do them. And I think rather than criticising and mixing these migrant numbers up with illegal migration, we should be thankful that these people want to work in the care sector, for instance.
Well, I think that's absolutely right. And of course, it takes a long time to train someone to go into nursing or into healthcare and adult social care. So when you have, particularly post-pandemic as well, the need to make sure that you have a proper, fully functioning healthcare system, that you have the numbers of people that are providing that role, it's vitally important that they're allowed to come into the country.
There is one thing, a lot of viewers and listeners pointing out that foreign workers can be paid less than people in this country, which makes them always more attractive than someone who's homegrown.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And there's always a conversation about raising the threshold and raising the minimum wage level to ensure that actually you can not just appeal to foreign workers to come into the country and fill the jobs, that there are those that are unemployed that can do those jobs as well. But I think all of these things should be on the table. But ultimately, I think, you know, I do agree with Leon. You've got to make sure that to have a fully functioning economy and a fully functioning country firing on all cylinders, you've got to have people, wherever they're from, to do the jobs that are needed.
But meanwhile, you've got a cabinet and indeed a party all in disarray. Nobody can agree. And, you know, Suella Braverman booted out a couple of weeks ago, and now it seems like Robert Jenrick is the one who is speaking out of turn against his own government, criticising their policy, and yet they've been in power for 13 years. It's not a good look, is it? And talking about slippery slope of arguments there, Leon, I mean, there's this huge row about whether or not to go for the full-fat Rwanda plan or not, and it seems like the new Home Secretary, James Cleverly, doesn't seem inclined to go for the full-fat option, which is upsetting Robert Jenrick.
I've lost programme audio, Isabel. I can see you talking, but I can't hear you. But I'm sure you're making a wonderful point. I will indeed.
Keep your question short.
Speaking of...
What?
You did a very long question earlier, just to point that out. I'll ask that to you, Charlie, then, seeing as you're here. I can't even remember what my question was.
Could I ask you both a question?
No, I want my question answered.
Do you remember what it is?
No, but Charlie does.
Charlie,
I'll give you an answer.
Right.
I don't know what the question is, but I'll give you an answer.
I'll tell you what I want to ask the both of you. As two young progressive men, what would you do with the Elgin marbles? That's got you, hasn't it?
I'd keep out. You know, it is a matter for the British Museum and the Greek government. I mean, I think that.
Would you meet with the Greek Prime Minister if you've got a diplomatic appointment booked?
I would have done, but if there's an agreement to not talk about it, and you know the way in which he sort of answered a question on Sunday afternoon.
He was asked a question.
But the way in which he answered it, I think, was slightly. You know, when you're Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and we've got a lot of problems in this country, right? You know, we've got an economy that we need to sort of get growing. We're cutting taxes, that's fine, but you know, there's a lot more work that needs to be done. You've got to cut the backlog in the NHS. You've got this global investment summit that's going on at the minute. We've got an immigration crisis that we've just been talking about.
But what would you do with the marbles?
Well,
would you hand them back?
I don't care about the marbles, Eamonn. I care about hard-working people in this country. I care about dealing with
a lot of people may well be like you. I think you speak on behalf of a lot of people.
I think if you go outside
let's see if Leon Emirali cares about the marbles. Would you lose your marbles? Would you hand them back, or would you say, no, they're ours, we bought them fair and square, and we did buy them?
I'm sorry, Eamonn, but I agree with Charlie on this. I don't care about the marbles either. I'm not sure what the fuss is all about.
Well, can I just interrupt you, Leon?
Please.
You know, you say you don't care about them, but, you know, it stopped a meeting between the Greek Prime Minister and the British Prime Minister at Rishi Sunak's behest. Now, Greece is on the forefront of this immigration crisis where, they're getting the brunt of the problems on many of the Greek islands. One of our big problems is immigration. Surely we shouldn't be cancelling a meeting over marbles that most people don't care about when they should be talking about some of these important issues.
And I fully care about that, Isabel. I fully agree. I think Greece are a NATO ally as well, at a time when there's, conflict very close on their borders as well. And as you say, immigration, a big problem for the Greeks. They're very close to Albania, which is where a lot of immigration comes into the UK. So there may be some work that we could have done there. And I do think Rishi Sunak has made a big strategic error in throwing his toys out the pram. I don't know whether it was intended to make him look strong, but I think actually it's done the opposite. It's made him look weak because he shirked away from the argument. If he wanted to look strong, he could have said, no, you're not having him back, but let's talk about the important issues that the country does care about.
Well, guys, really appreciate that. With the time at 8:15, we'll say goodbye to both of you. Thank you very much indeed. I think it's fascinating that two young men like them, and they don't care. Now, how representative are they around the country?
Well, I would say maybe we don't care until we think about it, because if we start saying that all of the antiquities that are in our museums go back, and everything that once belonged to somebody else, does that include territory? Somebody this morning emailing in saying, well, what about Gibraltar? Just where does it stop? Perhaps we have to say, it is what it is, they're here.
Well, there's going to be a diplomatic solution.
Also, you were saying they were bought.
They were bought.
They belong.
Yeah.
Lord.
Well, I don't know about that. I think morally they should be.
Well, then you said it was
Athens.
Turkey's, not Greeks.
But Turkey had occupied Greece.
Stop?
Yeah, where does it stop? But I think basically that morally they probably should go back. But there will be a diplomatic solution, which is we will say, if the Greeks agree, look, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll loan you these back for 70 years or whatever it happens to be. So they will, in effect,
yeah, you can
end
have a
up
little
back.
exhibition at the
But
Parthenon.
Britain won't say we'll give you them or we'll
There's
hand
a deal
them back.
to be done
They'll
there.
just say we'll loan them to you.
But the deal is never reached by not talking. Talking is the key to everything. Diplomacy, chatting.
Jaw, rather than war.
There we go.
There we go.
Right, on that note, we haven't seen much George or... Winston Churchill. Yeah, a few. Winston Churchill, just checking. History test there. I was going to say, has there been much George or from... Eamonn Scobie? He's been making the headlines, hasn't he, in his latest bombshell book? What's he been saying? Eamonn.
Oh, man, no.
Oh, we're going straight to Cameron.
Coming to Cameron, yeah, Cameron.
I'll just talk. We've got some breaking news. The Dutch version now appears to name two alleged royal racists in a separate passage that was reported last night.
See, I don't understand this, Cameron.
Okay.
Right? How does it get to a stage, if they know this is going to be libelous right from the start, how does this slip through lawyers? And indeed, is the Dutch version going to be different than the UK version?
Yeah, so the publishers of the Dutch version says they are temporarily withdrawing sales because an error occurred in the Dutch translation. Now, Eamonn Scobie spoke to Dutch television last night, and this is what he had to say.
The book's available in a number of languages, and unfortunately I can't speak Dutch, so I haven't seen the copy for myself, but if there have been any translation errors, I'm sure the publishers got it under control. For me, I edited and wrote the English version. There's never been a version that I've produced that has names in it.
So Eamonn Scobie very clear there that he has never produced a version with the names in it. But I've read said passage, and it's really difficult to see how it was translated quite so differently from the original English text, because names don't just spring out of nowhere. And in the English version, clearly there is no names mentioned at all.
Was there not a suggestion late yesterday that this was a preview of the book that was being sent out to journalists, that was not the actual final version, and that was where the error had come?
But you see...
That it was subsequently edited out.
It's interesting, but he has just said that at no stage did he...
But maybe his publishers had. I don't know.
Well, you're the author. You control.
Yeah.
You control the book. I mean, I find this really weird. Unless, like a lot of other things, this is a fantasy.
Well, quite possibly, but I think the big theory a lot of people are speculating about, and I must stress it is only speculation, is the Dutch publishers, which are separate from the publishers here in the United Kingdom, were sent the manuscripts of the book. Then lawyers got involved and said, you cannot name the alleged royal racists, but somebody forgot to tell the Dutch publishers to revise their version before it went to print. That is just speculation. That has not been proven. As I said, Eamonn and the Dutch publishers are adamant that it is only a translation error.
Meanwhile, of course, this just adds to the publicity for the book, which leads other people to say this is all a huge publicity stunt. And, of course, could it lead to actual libel action after all of this?
I think quite possibly. It's certainly backed the royal family and the royal household, I think, into a bit of a corner. And it's really difficult, isn't it? Because none of us were there when those conversations were allegedly had. We don't know the context. They perhaps could have felt it was perfectly innocent what was said. Clearly, we've seen how Meghan views it in the Oprah interview, where she was clearly very upset by, and I quote, questions and conversations about how dark Archie's skin might be when he was born. So until we know exactly what was said and by who, it's really difficult to comment on. But it just adds to all this speculation, and it's not going to go away anytime soon, because now the British public, and indeed people all over the world, are really going to want to know the full context of this. It's a lot of whispers.
Yes, interesting. Do you think it makes people tut-tut and say, oh, this is all ridiculous, and they go to the Daily Mail for the tidbits that they get from the book? Or do you think it actually will make people go to the bookshops and buy the book?
I think it could perhaps make people want to buy the book, which is, of course, the whole reason why perhaps Omid Scobie wrote it in the first place. It is going... Finding Freedom was a bestseller, his previous book. I suspect this one could do well as well.
OK. Got to leave it there.
News.
Thank you very much indeed, Cameron. Thank you. The time, 8:21.
We have breaking news. Will you have to be breaking the ice? There's a cold snap on the way. Here's Alex Deakin.
Morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. The cold spell continues, a frosty start for many, and we've seen a covering of snow in places. We've still got sleet and snow showers coming in this morning over northern and eastern Scotland, southeast Scotland, northeast England. Could be quite icy out there this morning as well. Well, we've got those showers, and there's a few fog patches to be wary of. A bit more cloud across the south, 1 or 2 rain showers here, but that cloud breaking up through the morning. So actually, for most of us, a fine day. Yes, it's going to be cold, 2 or 3 degrees for quite a few of us, but there will be plenty of sunshine. Temperatures a little higher across the south and southwest, with the clouds sticking around in the far southwest, and we'll continue with some showers here through the evening and overnight. There'll be rain showers here initially, but more sleet and snow showers coming into the northeast, so again, things could well turn icy. And even in the south, we could just see a little bit of snow coming in over the moors in particular. For many, though, it's another dry, clear night, so another frosty start tomorrow morning. For anything a little colder, temperatures more widely down to -3 or -4. And again, some mist and fog patches. Thursday's a bit of a mishmash, again, for quite a few of us, just dry, fine and sunny, but more cloud in the south, with some outbreaks of mostly rain on the south coast, but if it's a little further north, could provide some sleet and snow for a time. Further wintry showers keeping coming along some of those North Sea coasts. And again, it's going to be another pretty cold one, with temperatures 3 or 4 at best.
Up next, we're talking about non-binary. So whether you don't identify as a man, you don't identify as a woman, should the UK recognise this on your passport and whatever? Should that be a category of person, non-binary? Debating that next.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I. So you want higher taxes? Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, a non-binary person is set to appear at the High Court to campaign for a UK gender recognition certificate.
So what's their aim? Their aim is to appeal a ruling made by the Gender Recognition Panel not to grant them a gender recognition certificate. So in other words, they say, we're non-binary. The panel come back and say, well, you can't be non-binary. You've got to be a man or a woman, I presume.
So we're asking the question this morning, should non-binary be legally recognised as a gender?
Joined by former British swimmer Sharon Davis. We say good morning to Sharon, who thinks it shouldn't, while author and broadcaster Amy Nicole Turner believes that it should. So I wonder, Sharon, how common this problem is.
Oh, gosh, I mean, that's a question I can't answer for you. What I can tell you is that I believe in biology. And obviously things like medicine, sport, statistics, which actually influences policy, is based on biological sex. And human beings can only be male or female. Even people with the DSD, difference of sexual development, are still male and female. There is no third sex. So I think what we've kind of done, we've gone down a rabbit hole of having to create so many different labels for really just different types of personality. I mean, I was around in the 70s, the 80s and the 90s when we had Boy George, Marilyn, Annie Lennox, David Bowie. You know, these are people that didn't conform to stereotypes. And it's stereotypes, really. It's not biological sex. It's whether you're feminine, today's version of what you think feminine is, or what you think you are, today's version of masculine. And I'm saying that's just numerous. You know, that's numerous personalities. That doesn't change your biological sex. So for things like medicine, sport, and statistics,
so
we need to be on it.
You think that some of the people you named there, whether they were man or woman, if they had tendencies for another sex, that was okay, but they still, you know, so whether Boy George would have to say, I am a man, but I might have feminine tendencies.
I suppose we get really bogged down with these man, male, female. I always refer to the terms male and female as a description of biological sex. So I would say that Boy George was male, David Bowie was male, Annie Lennox was female. However, if Annie Lennox wanted to wear suits and have short hair, that didn't all of a sudden make her a man. It just meant that she liked to dress in a masculine way. That's absolutely fine.
This is about people not wanting to be a man, per se, as a woman. It's about being neither, about somebody being non-binary. Let's bring in Amy Nicole Turner in all of this. I mean, there are 30,000 people in the last census that say they are non-binary. Do we just ignore them?
So I think what Sharon's done there is she's presented a common misconception about non-binary people, and she's described gender expression. David Bowie and Annie Lennox are had an androgynous gender expression. That's nothing to do with your gender identity. Sharon then talked about biological sex. Again, no one is denying biological sex. A very simple analogy to understand the difference between biological sex and gender identity is to think of biological sex as the computer hardware and then gender identity as the software. They're two completely different things, but they're equally valid and equally immutable. And non-binary people currently, they cannot, this is just about their identification. They want to be recognised as they are on their passports, on their driving licenses. There's been examples of when non-binary people have got married and they haven't been able to get married because they would have to use gendered terms such as husband and wife, which they don't, which doesn't accurately reflect their gender identity. Yes, you can think of biological sex as pink and blue, but then your gender identity is more of a spectrum, and that's a rainbow of colours. So it's not as simple and straightforward, and it's diverse and it's complex. And if you deny that non-binary gender identity exists, which would be pretty silly because it's existed throughout history, particularly in Native American culture. Sharon, I'd love to know what you find funny about that.
I just don't understand how you can say it's existed. I don't I mean, we've now got people coming out saying that, Joan of Arc actually identified as being a man, because she was a warrior. I mean, this is just ridiculous. We don't know that, Amy. We don't know that. We're making speculation. All I'm saying is on a passport, for example, we should say whether you're male or female.
We do know that, because we've seen it like two-spirit culture. It's happened throughout time. Also, we lag behind in recognising non-binary in a legal setting. So we lag behind Canada, Germany, Australia, Nepal, India. The list goes on. And at the moment, what we're doing with a lack of education and a lack of advocacy, because there's so few non-binary people, we don't understand them, and we just we repeat these common misconceptions. You've basically ticked them all off. It's just a phase. It's to do with gender expression. It's to do with masculinity, femininity. It's none of those things. It's a gender identity that deserves to have the recognition in the same way your gender identity does and my gender identity.
I'm not really clear what this certificate does. I mean, they're already recognised and identify as non-binary. What difference does it make to have a certificate? Why does this have to go all the way to the High Court, use court time, prompt this sort of national debate?
Because they're keen to point out they're neither man or woman.
But why does it need a certificate to say that? I'm just asking the question.
The simple way to think of it would be, how would you feel, Isabel, if your passport had to say M on it?
So this will go in their passport, is my point. This goes in their passport.
Passport, death certificate, any sort of legal identification. But when it really comes to fore is when you want to get married, I think is one that's easy to understand. So would you want to get married, being called someone's husband throughout?
Hang on, sorry, Sharon, you were trying to say something there.
Yeah, so I'm just saying your passport is actually saying whether you're male or female, which is correct, okay? So it's a biological thing for saying you're male. So if you were, for example, to go into a coma and then you got rushed into hospital, they would need to know whether you're male or female, because they need to know how to treat you. And it's the same in sport. We just recently had the Boston Marathon, and we had the men's category, the women's category, which had men that were identifying as women, and we had the non-binary category, which were men, again, that were winning. And the guy that won the men's category, who identifies as non-binary, couldn't even make the top 100 in the men's category, and yet he had prize money. There is only two sexes.
You have a tendency to always bring this subject back to sport, which is obvious. I know it's something that is your area, but we are
one at a time, because the audio isn't fantastic. Apologies, ladies. So, Amy, you make your point, and Sharon, you can respond afterwards.
We aren't talking about sport. We're talking about we're talking about basic decency and dignity of people to be able to say who they are on their identification documents. This is recognised by the Royal College of Psychiatrists, the World Health Organization, the UN have even pointed out that we are lagging behind in this area of not recognising non-binary identities. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah,
there's only 30,000 of them.
Let's
Why
get
not
Sharon's response.
Amy, the women's policy leader for the UN is run by someone who's from Iran. So I'm not sure that I'm going to take an awful lot of notice of what the UN is actually doing at the moment. So my point is that biology actually really matters, and it matters in science, matters in medicine, it matters in sport, and it matters very much in statistics, because policies are based on that. So, you know,
I'm not denying the relevant importance of biological sex. I'm just saying you should also treat gender identity with the same amount of recognition that you do with biological sex. The two are equally valid, equally immutable, and that's what I'm saying.
Well, I don't think we're going to agree on all of this. No, you're still there. Just agree to disagree, I suppose. Sorry, I didn't. Who was saying something there?
It's a good time to call it an end.
We'll call it a day.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Sorry for the technological horlicks that all of that was. Thank you. And for those of you watching me at home and saying, what's he signalling about? You have to, I have to be out of vision, but I wasn't out of vision, so therefore I've got time to get instructions across to what should happen next. What will happen next is we will have our headline makers in the studio, and we'll be back right after this break.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I. So you want higher taxes? Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
For this section of the programme, we're delighted to welcome back Alex Armstrong and Anna Mikalova. Anna's the Deputy Political Editor of The Mail on Sunday, and Alex is a political commentator. So let's talk about politics in the form, Anna, of the Elgin Marbles, first of all, which is developing into, is it a right drama? Is it a distraction? How do you rate what happened?
Well, I think there's certainly an element of drama off the back of the Greek approach here, because it's done the Greek PM no damage at home for him to look like he's standing up, he's making tough claims, which looks like a lot of political theatre, and is possibly why Rishi Sunak saw that and thought, I can't be bothered with this. But it's only really... If the idea was to try and move on and not have it take up bandwidth for the Prime Minister, it's almost created a row out of nothing, because it's now we're talking about it.
Rather than the Bank of England, growth problems, immigration, whatever else it may be.
It certainly makes a better picture for us newspapers.
It's the Omid Scobie tactic of, fantastic backdoor
publicity.
As well.
Yeah, and the funny thing about this story is that actually the government have no say in these marbles whatsoever, wherever they go. It's the British Museum that actually owns them. So this is a bit of a storm in a teacup. There was also, through diplomatic channels, the Greeks were asked not to bring this up because it, again, was not something the British government wanted to talk about.
Let me bring it up. What would you do with the marbles, Alex?
I'd keep them here. I'd keep them here, and I tell you, got to just tell one quick reason why. I'll tell you why. Because we took those marbles legally through routes through the Ottoman Empire at the time. The Parthenion, if I say that correctly, was being used as munition storage at the time. So a lot of that artwork was being damaged. We took them home, we restored them, and now millions of people get to see them. Less people will see them back in Athens, although I do understand the moral obligation for them to go back to where they originally came from at some point.
Anna?
I would keep them here too, but I also think we almost have no choice in it, because whenever I speak to anyone from the art world, it seems to be a done deal. It seems to be that effectively it's been more or less agreed behind the scenes.
George Osborne, he's the bigwig at the British Museum.
He's pro-giving them on this very long-term loan, which almost everyone interprets as permanent, because once you give them away, you're never going to get them back. But I find that there's a really interesting disconnect between what the public thinks, what politicians seem to say and think, and what, if you, as I say, speak to anyone who's actually in the art world, they almost assume that they're all going back.
But why do you say you'd like to keep them here? What's your reason?
Because I think it's a slippery slope. First of all, I think they're presented beautifully in the British Museum.
Have you seen them?
I have, of course. Although, we were saying earlier that it's not like we're all going down every weekend. But no, I've absolutely seen them.
Week. We should do something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Make use of our day.
Yeah, and when you start with that, where do you end? And these museums they're national treasures. They're also hugely educational. Instead of giving them back, I think, make it clear, make them educational, describe the whole debate and the argument, and do something like that.
Well, we had two commentators on 20 minutes ago who basically were in their 30s, and they said, don't care where they go. So it's just interesting.
Yeah. And not just chaps in their 30s, but advisors to the government, or previous advisors.
Yeah.
Speaking of the government, should we talk about AI, Alex? This is interesting. This is a new government report which says that basically jobs in the city are going to be the first and the worst hit.
Absolutely. Well, I've got some experience with this because the business that I work for develops AI for finance companies. So the report actually suggests that 2/3 of office jobs are going to go. And, using AI myself, I can see why. It's a much better writer. It does calculations on things in seconds.
Is it really? What are you talking about, ChatGPT and things?
Yeah,
we've found that not to be a great writer, personally.
Maybe not for what you guys do, but for day-to-day reporting and things like, if I want to say, if I tell ChatGPT, find this piece of research on the internet and give me a report on it. It will do it in seconds.
Yeah, but we've done that and asked them to do a report on us, and it's absolutely filled with nonsense.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think maybe for things that are quite heavily statistical, it works really well.
Right.
Maybe things for slightly more political, it's a very, very fine line there for sure. But, you know, it seems like it will continue to get better and better. And if you look at the improvement of AI over time, you'll see this massive, massive change in society, I think, as it becomes embedded in everything that we do.
Alex, you talk about job losses in the city here, and I don't wish to appear Luddite about this, but basically, what is going to happen to jobs? Whatever your job is, whether you work in a warehouse or whether you work in the city, AI will come for your job.
Yeah.
And what will happen to how will people earn a living?
Yes.
Who will pay people? Will the government pay? Will that come from central government?
Yeah.
How will this happen?
Well, so there's quite a lot of proposals around this because it is a big thing being spoken about in the tech world. Universal basic income is massively a big proponent of things that Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, they all say we need to have some form of universal basic income. There will be a lot of jobs created by AI that we don't know about yet, so that's another thing to consider.
Like what?
Well, we don't know. We don't know where it's going to go, so there could be a lot of AI jobs created.
Well, I again would need to be convinced about that, because what could we do that it couldn't do?
That's a good question. Yeah. Jobs like, we talked about this earlier, bricklayers and care workers, these will be big money. They actually earn more money in the future because it will be a skill that robots and AI can't do. So you might even see a big move of students wanting to learn those practical skills, which might be a nice change from the office desk job. You never know. See a revival of the industrial...
I'm sceptical, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I'm very sceptical.
About which bit?
About all of it, about it being sold as, oh, we'll just figure out the details and we'll all be better off. I actually don't think that's the case. And I think historically, when we've had these arguments about, big technological shifts in industry, so when all the big industries were broken up a few decades ago, the argument was also, don't worry, we'll all be better off. Actually, everyone just lost their jobs and that industry was gone. So we need to be really, really careful here without sleepwalking into something that changes the nature of everything irreversibly.
How do we stop ourselves sleepwalking? I mean, we can't seem to stop ourselves doing anything as a society. We can't. We literally have no self-control.
Well, the big problem now is that we've got these massive technology companies that are so much more powerful and bigger than a nation state. You know, you just look at Apple, for example, the weight that company throws around is impressive and extremely powerful. So actually it comes from forms of legislation from a lot of countries collaborating to slow that down. Yeah. AI is one of the things that Rishi Sunak's been very big on recently. He had that talk with Elon Musk where he was trying to build in safety measures.
The job interview.
That's right, yeah, future job interview.
Well, meanwhile, there's a story here in the Telegraph front page, and it talks about GP appointments over the phone. Now, I would imagine this is an area ripe for AI to take over. But it's saying that GP appointments over the phone or online risk harming patients, Alex.
Yes, I'm actually one of the people that uses these sort of services. I've got Babylon GP at hand. I will say, in my experience, that it has been brilliant, and I've seen a GP when I've needed to, i.e. a follow-up. I think it's a very good thing that I can speak to a GP in 24 hours with this service. And for a lot of people who've just got a bad cold and need that, reassurance that they don't have to walk into a doctor's surgery, I think is a good thing. However, I totally understand the risk of GPs misdiagnosing people over the phone, whether that's through negligence of the patient or otherwise. This could be a really, really serious problem if we don't find a way to diagnose serious illnesses over the phone or through a video call, essentially. So I would like to see more of a return to face-to-face GPs.
Well, they quote an example of a pregnant woman. They thought she had a urinary tract problem. It was a ruptured placenta. Just have a blanket rule: no pregnant,
Absolutely.
AI or virtual appointments, because it's just so important that you don't put that baby at any risk, or the mother.
That's right.
You talk about the influence Apple has over the world. I got one of their phones in the past week. Now, what are you trying to do? I'm trying to just get into my phone.
Well, it's so.
Well, how did it work to your finger, not mine?
Oh, goodness, I've got long enough.
Yeah, anyway.
I mean, look, with AI doctors, I definitely see that becoming a thing in the future. Whether patients go to those services will be another decision for the patients.
I find whenever we talk about AI, I feel really depressed.
Yeah.
I feel like no hope.
I just think we're
What's going to happen to your granddaughters? You know, bad enough for my kids, but the baby's coming in now. What sort of world?
Well, in students now, if you speak to students, so many of them are happy just working and doing everything from their bedrooms or on the computer. Everything's so just
How do you meet anyone? How do you live a life?
Yes. And GPs, don't forget, used to at least play an important role for older people. It is a point of contact. It is a loneliness, anti-loneliness argument.
Yeah, it's a scary future. It's a scary future for people. And do you know what? I think, I mean, look, it could be a liberation. A lot of people feel like they don't want to work, and that young generation don't want to work. We've seen massive surveys being done. They hate going to office jobs. So maybe there's some sort of liberation.
Because they've never stuck to one. They haven't persevered and come out the other end and realised it was actually better for them.
Of actually having a bit of work-life balance.
Yeah. It's overrated.
I think a hybrid is the key. Shall we talk about dogs unleashing their inner artists, Anna? Sorry, we have to go...
Unleashing is the right word. So this is wonderful. This is a story, and it's off the back of the absolute spike in stray dogs from after COVID. Remember, everyone went out, bought a puppy, bought a dog, and sadly, people are just leaving them on the street.
No.
So the shelters are completely overrun, and no one wants them. So they've come up with a brilliant initiative. This is some dogs in a studio in Bristol that have been taught to paint, and they're painting canvases to raise money for the shelter, and it's rather wonderful.
Well, how do they paint? With their mouths?
With their mouths,
yeah, and
their
a brush in their mouth. But the trick in this is what?
Well, some of the paints are flavoured with peanut butter or other tempting
trying to
things.
Eat the paint.
They're basically eating the paint.
Do we
on
not
the
have
canvas.
video of the dogs doing this?
No,
but we can recreate it.
Well, this is it's a viral. It's gone viral on all of this. But you see, the dogs. I think dogs. I can't speak more highly than dogs. I'm doing a carol concert next week, and it's in aid of the Dogs Trust and everything. And like you say, the shelter's bursting with dogs that people have handed back and idiots that don't know what to do with their dogs. But you will not come across an animal that will give you more love and will connect with you so much.
Wow.
So they're obviously very, very intelligent as well. And I think the idea of whatever way they do this, that this would be immortalised, their personality in some way, their colour associated with that would be very nice.
No, it's wonderful. I know, it's great. And apparently they're planning to do a Mutt Gala based on the Met Gala, where we can exhibit all of these and show their talents.
Some of those look better than things I've seen in the Tate Modern, so there you go, they might.
Go for a fortune. I'm just rifling through the inbox because we've been asking people to send in their worst Christmas presents. This is quite fun. You go through the list and I'll find you. There's some great emails.
So things that people don't like. They don't like being given gifts that are very practical, like a frying pan here, like an iron, like a car air freshener. And I would be very particular about what air freshener I got for my car, but yeah, they don't want potpourri, light bulbs. Why would you buy anybody light bulbs? Well, but maybe you know that person really well.
David Dobson, I bought my wife some weighing scales because she was going to Slimming World at the time. Apparently that didn't go down very well.
He thinks he's doing a love thing there, but obviously not.
Didn't go down well. What's the worst present that you've ever had?
Oh, do you know what? I was thinking about this the other day, and I love my granddad, but he gave me a 50p piece once, and that was my Christmas present.
But it would be a commemorative one, would it not?
No, it wasn't. No, it's just 50p piece. When I was from a different generation, that was a lot of money.
When I was young, you used to get pennies from the bank that were in a net, not chocolate pennies or anything, real bronze, brassy pennies, and that was a great thing that Santa would have left you some money like that. Yeah.
My good lady was most upset when I got her oven gloves for Christmas, which I had to return to the shop. 3 weeks later, she burnt her hand when taking a chicken out of the oven. I got the last laugh. That's from Blythe. And then this one, I bought my granny a rocket for Christmas. She was over the moon.
Brilliant. Very good. But how many people buy presents for someone else, but it's really for themselves? So when you see things like, I bought my wife a mop and bucket or whatever, is that because you want the kitchen floor cleaned? You can't hear anybody saying...
I like to buy experiences as gifts, so I might buy my husband afternoon tea somewhere or something.
For two.
And then, for two, yeah. Or what was it? We did skydiving recently. It was brilliant. We all got to enjoy it.
Yeah,
anyway, thank you both so much. Really enjoyed that. We're going to get a check on the forecast now.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar. sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. The cold spell continues, a frosty start for many, and we've seen a covering of snow in places. We've still got sleet and snow showers coming in this morning over northern and eastern Scotland, southeast Scotland, northeast England. Could be quite icy out there this morning as well. Well, we've got those showers, and there's a few fog patches to be wary of. A bit more cloud across the south, 1 or 2 rain showers here, but that cloud breaking up through the morning. So actually for most of us, a fine day. Yes, it's going to be cold, 2 or 3 degrees for quite a few of us, but there will be plenty of sunshine. Temperatures a little higher across the south and southwest. With the clouds sticking around in the far southwest, and we'll continue with some showers here through the evening and overnight. There'll be rain showers here initially, but more sleet and snow showers coming into the northeast. So again, things could well turn icy. And even in the south, we could just see a little bit of snow coming in over the moors in particular. For many, though, it's another dry, clear night, so another frosty start tomorrow morning. For anything a little colder, temperatures more widely down to -3 or -4. And again, some mist and fog patches. Thursday's a bit of a mishmash, again, for quite a few of us, just dry, fine and sunny, but more cloud in the south with some outbreaks of mostly rain on the south coast, but if it's a little further north, could provide some sleet and snow for a time. Further wintry showers keeping coming along some of those North Sea coasts. And again, it's going to be another pretty cold one with temperatures 3 or 4 at best.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Still to come, we'll be looking ahead to a busy day in Westminster. We've got a new political row brewing. This one is over migration. Your views very welcome in this. GBviews at gbnews.com, or you can tweet at GBnews. All of that happening next.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie.
Second best.
You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Oh! No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer, and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle. Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's my new teeth.
It's your new teeth. I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I. So you want higher taxes? Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It is coming up to 9 o'clock on Wednesday, the 29th of November. This is breakfast with Isabel. Sorry, I'm off again. It's been one of those mornings.
She's off again. Like, wherever you are, if you are having breakfast, you're very welcome. Thank you for coming on board. Online, on radio, on your appliance. Alexa, play GB News. You'll get us, OK?
What? What? Just carry on.
I have to work with this every day.
I'm sorry, someone
day.
just complained about my giggling. I'm really sorry. It's one of those days. I'm a bit
Good
giggly.
to the boss gets you. Here's what we've been covering. That scared her. That scared you,
Got
didn't
you
it?
going now.
Yeah. Here's what we've been covering today on the programme, and migration featuring very strongly today. And this is dissent within the Conservative Party over the migration numbers. Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick, who you're seeing there, takes aim at number 10 over a lack of action from within the government itself.
Well, the Environment Secretary,
Steve Barclay, he told us they accepted more needs to be done.
Clearly we need to do more. I fully support the Home Secretary in taking tough action to bring those numbers down, but there are things we have been doing already.
Bombshell book Endgame has reignited the Harry and Meghan royal race row. Sales have been halted in Holland after a Dutch version seems to identify a family member or two family members accused of racism. Big news coming out of the jungle. Nigel Farage supporters claim he's been edited out of the programme as ITV come under criticism, come under fire about their portrayal of him on the programme. And
it's a frosty weekend. Alex Deacon has your forecast.
Another cold one out there today, and it's going to be cold for the rest of this week. Frosty mornings, some fog, and yes, some places seeing some snow. Join me later for a full forecast.
Is there anything particular that's making you laugh?
No,
is it like giddy disease? Is it like
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Well, it's a nice thing.
I've lost it now. I'm back to normal. Sorry, apologies for that. Lots of entertaining emails have been coming in about unwanted Christmas presents. This one from Kate. My worst Christmas present was a toolkit. Rosie got her husband a fire extinguisher. John bought his wife a chainsaw. And Janet says, my husband gave me chain lube for my motorbike.
What?
And who sent it?
What? What did he get?
Run the sting.
Right, this whole immigration row, let's go to Catherine Foster now on this, who's our political correspondent. So it all kicked off, I mean, what prompted this outburst from Robert Jenrick yesterday? Don't you start as well.
Well, basically, he was having to speak in the House of Commons because, of course, lots of MPs are very, very concerned by 750,000 people coming into the country last year. And he was asked if the government were going to bring forward a package of measures to bring down net migration before Christmas. And he basically said, well, if it had been up to me, we'd have had a package of measures before last Christmas. So, so much for collective cabinet responsibility. They're all supposed to basically take the same view. But it's very clear, since Suella Braverman was sacked a couple of weeks ago, that her second in command, if you like, in the Home Office, Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick, is going to take a tough line. So he's already floated plans of his. He would like to see the how much the minimum that you need to earn to come to be raised from 26 to 35,000. Also a crackdown on dependents coming in. We've already seen the government introducing limits on dependents coming with students. There's a lot of talk now about limiting dependents coming with workers. In terms of social care workers, for example, there were pretty much as many dependents coming as social care workers in the last year. So lots of divisions within the Conservative Party and indeed within the Cabinet, because the general election is looming. We've heard constantly about stopping the small boats. The government are not having much success with that, though numbers are down about 30%, but a lot of concern that they're going to be punished at the next general election. They, of course, promised for many years to get net migration down to the tens of thousands, and here we are at 750,000.
And what point does this create some sort of threat to Rishi's authority, that he doesn't seem to be able to have any message discipline at the moment? There's supposed to be cabinet responsibility. He gets rid of Suella Braverman, and now, the guy that seemed to be the handbrake on Suella Braverman steps into that role himself. So, what does Rishi Sunak do about this? Does he continue to allow his party to fall apart around him, and is indeed this row within cabinet? How does he solve this?
Well, it's incredibly difficult. And Isaac Levido, the sort of Tory election mastermind, has warned the Conservative Party on several occasions that for them to have any chance of winning at all, and bear in mind that chance is looking very, very slim at the moment, they need to put out a united front. They need to stop this public fighting, but we see it again and again because there's so many different groups within the Conservative Party, and so many people have ideas about what Rishi Sunak should be doing, what he's not doing, what he could do differently, what he should be doing better. And they all think that their ideas should be heard.
Why does he have to do anything? If this legal migration is needed in the country, the first thing we have to do is an honest conversation about what we need, who we need, how many people we need, why we need them, and then people can understand that. I mean, it's not as if I think people are against migration as such. They just want it done in an orderly way and also filling gaps which British people will not fill, I suppose.
Yeah, and also the infrastructure to support it, because frankly, it's another city of Glasgow every year. How on earth do we sustain that with schools, hospitals, roads, you name it?
Well, certainly, yes. Social care workers are desperately needed. NHS workers are desperately needed. Of course. But then why are the social care sector not paying workers more? You can get more going and working in your local supermarket than you can working in social care. A lot of people will say, well, employers ought to be paying more and make it more attractive for British people to do these jobs. But certainly, despite the government's assurances over 13 years that they want to get net migration down, they have done the exact opposite. But I think given their pledges, given that one of the main drivers of the Brexit vote was getting migration down, they're going to have a very, very tough sell if they now do an about turn and say, actually, guys, sorry, in fact, we do need all of these people. I think that would be very problematic.
Just a really quick point. There's this NATO foreign ministers meeting going on in Brussels. Apparently, Lord Cameron and the Greek foreign minister have just met up, and of course the issue of Elgin marbles have come up again, and this is in the Press Association they've just released in the last few moments. I would like to say that the Greek government has made a statement concerning the cancellation of the meeting with Prime Minister Sunak, and that he wants the unification of the Parthenon sculptures, that's the Elgin marbles, and that we need to work on a bilateral basis with the UK. We're going to serve this purpose in the future. So basically the story isn't going away, and I wonder if Rishi Sunak's now regretting cancelling that meeting quickly. Sorry, Catherine.
Yes, I imagine David Cameron's going to be trying to smooth the waters, because this has really erupted into this huge diplomatic spat, hasn't it, after he cancelled a meeting because the Greek PM talked about the Elgin marbles and how they should be in Greece on a TV show on Sunday morning. Rishi Sunak then said, OK, he can talk to the deputy PM instead. The Greek PM said, OK, then, well, I won't bother, thank you very much. And it's all gone rather wrong. I think it's worth saying, I'm not convinced that many voters really care that much about this, but many will see it as a missed opportunity. Of course, Greece is a country that's been on the forefront of difficulties with illegal migration. You know, we saw several years ago huge numbers of people crossing to Greek islands before we had the problem here. And people will be thinking perhaps, well, couldn't the UK and Greece have a lot to talk about in resolving this rather than arguing over what happens to things in the British Museum?
Catherine, thank you for all of that. Appreciate it. From Westminster there, Catherine Forster. So we're talking about politicians talking to each other. We're not hearing much of Nigel Farage in the jungle on the ITV series I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Yes, it's led to accusations of censorship by many of Nigel Farage's supporters. But meanwhile, the Express newspaper is claiming Nigel made a racist comment in a privately recorded video message.
Let's go to Ben Leo, down under. Here's the latest. Ben.
Good morning from Down Under. So a very interesting development overnight in the last couple of hours. A story breaking on the Daily Express website claiming that ITV News were this weekend planning to drop a story that accuses Nigel Farage of recording a video on the video service Cameo. And if you don't know what Cameo is, long story short, it's a service where members of the public can ask celebrities to read out messages for birthdays or special events in exchange for £75. ITV News have a story that they were planning to release this weekend, which accuses Nigel, in one of those videos for a random customer, of saying an offensive and potentially racist term. Interestingly, the story was coincided to drop in time for the first I'm a Celebrity eviction vote sometime this weekend. But I'm just going to read you a statement in full from Nigel's team that might shed some more light on it. So a spokesman for Farage said, over the last few years, Nigel has filmed over 4,000 Cameo messages for fans and supporters. This includes videos of people's weddings, birthdays, stag do's, in-jokes between friends, and even people who are ill in hospital. When Nigel first joined Cameo, there was a concerted effort by Remain supporters to hijack the platform to embarrass Nigel by getting him to read out obscure, rude words and in-jokes between friends. It is widely reported that some of these slipped through the net, as Nigel is a classic boomer dad. In the video in question, Nigel was asked by a customer on Cameo to read a message they had written for a friend. Had Nigel known that the message he was asked to read contained an obscure, offensive word, he would not have made the video. Elsewhere, the show last night, I'm a Celebrity, was interestingly extended at the last minute by about 15 minutes to include this confrontation between Nigel and YouTuber Nella Rose about cultural appropriation. This is the moment.
Why do they say water like that? It's like a joke or something? We say it, we gotta put it in the water. It's patois. It's the Jamaican version of saying water. They say water.
You got to boil your water, and they say your water.
In fact, if you sang that, they'd call it cultural appropriation, Fred. They would. No, they would.
I know, but everybody's doing my accent. Is it cultural appropriation?
I know. It's when suits. They criticise when suits.
What do you mean, Nigel?
If a white person has a black accent, that's considered to be a crime. You know, they should be cancelled.
It depends in what context. If you're taking the then you're taking the but if you're not, then you're not.
So you can't, sort of can't win territory.
Nah, it just depends on the context.
Just going back to that Daily Express story, GB News has gone back to ITV News with a series of questions about their story. We're yet to hear to have a reply or receive anything back. And in terms of the show tonight, Nigel has been voted to do tonight's Bush Tucker trial. So all eyes on that in tonight's episode.
Thank you very much indeed from that. Andrew Pearce, Bev Turner will be here from 9:30 Britain's newsroom. ITV not coming out of this quite well. They're not, I mean, I don't know if Farage hasn't turned out to be the booking that they wanted him to be, or are they making some sort of political statement from a woke station?
It's very odd, isn't it? Because they paid an awful lot of money for him. If the reports are right, £1.5 million, a record amount of money. And this just seems like skullduggery by ITV to try to undermine him. Of course, he presumably is oblivious because he has no contact with the outside world. I don't think he even knows that David Cameron's Foreign Secretary. Because if he did, he'd be saying quite a lot about it.
True. Yeah, interesting.
What else have you got coming up?
We are talking about immigration, of course. It's a huge story. It will dominate the Prime Minister's questions today. The pressure now on the government to close down this visa route for cheaper foreign staff, whereby employers can get employees 20% below the going rate. I thought that was what we were voting against in Brexit, stopping this. Some of the people who come in on this visa route include ballet dancers, actors, graphic designers. Can't we find them here? It's ridiculous, isn't it?
But how are we going to find people then to pick potatoes and...
Get them off of benefits. Get them off of benefits. And here's the other thing. I would say to all the migrants in the hotels and hostels, you're going to pick food and fruit in return for your board and lodge. Why don't the government do that? It would be a vote winner. It would be a game changer.
Well, Nigel, I'll tell you this, that hotel people... I've stayed in many hotels over the past few months and around the country. There's no staff. There's no staff to be housemaids. There's no staff to work in the restaurants and things. So I really don't know, Andrew, what the answer is. Where these people are hiding, how we get them if they don't come from Ukraine or Czechoslovakia or whatever it happens to be.
I mean, they've got to get to grips with it because we can't carry on having 745,000 people coming in legally every year. That's a big city every year. We haven't got the room.
No, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Andrew Pearce.
Looking forward to it. Right, still to come. A new breed of bean is getting grown by the University of Warwick and a farmer, so we can finally have British baked beans. We'll have all the details after
And
this.
they're not jelly beans.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Everybody's leaping to my defence. They say it's your fault that I burst into giggles there. Kay says, Eamonn said about watching GB News on your appliance. Yeah, I get great GB News reception on my washing machine. Even Ruthie got in touch going, on your appliance? And then she said, chain lube, this is sabotage. So no wonder I had the giggles.
We're talking about Christmas presents, and Janie says the best present she ever got was her husband giving her chain lube.
I'm not starting again.
For her motorbike.
Well, this one from Helen in West Wales. Love you both. Isabel's making me laugh this morning and has cheered me up. I, like her, cannot stop once I've started, so know how difficult it is to get under control. Don't worry, it's great. Good. And Ruthie says, I know the feeling, don't worry, it is funny. Eamonn loves to keep it going and is really good at keeping a straight face, which always made me laugh even more. So she knows my pain. He looks there all virtuous, like a little saint, and I'm just completely gone. Anyway, it's a disease. I'm very giggly, I'm sorry. But it was funny. I think a few people enjoyed it. Should I stop talking?
Can I speak?
Yeah,
Can I speak? That's good.
Yeah.
Are you on something today?
I'm not.
Right. Beans. We're going to grow them in Britain. Apparently they're grown in South America. Baked beans, the stuff that you have for your tea, or in Isabel's case, supper or dinner.
Don't start me off.
Anyway, it's tea. Anyway, baked beans. Will Hollis will tell you more.
The new product development kitchen for food giant Prince's near Spalding, a dream has become reality.
This is the new variety, and you can see here a lovely bold sample.
Foreign baked beans dominate the market. But now Lincolnshire farmer Andrew Ward has grown a new variety from his farm in Leadenham that can withstand our weather.
They did harvest really well. We had to have a specialist header on the front of the combine to pick them up because they grow very low to the ground, but that worked extremely well. The growing was a challenge due to the weather, but in the end it was massively successful.
Baked beans came to Britain under the name Heinz in the 19th century. We've been hooked ever since. The University of Warwick is breeding the new beans, called Capulet, alongside Andrew and the help of agricultural consultants Agri. Professor Eric Holub is a crop scientist with the School of Life Sciences. He says growing British beans would help food sustainability and the nation's health.
We're interested in public health, and we're really keen to be involved in the message of all of us eating more plant fibre.
Now it's Prince's job to transform bland beans with the tomatoey taste Brits love. Liam's in charge of developing new products.
Until such time as we actually scale up into the factory, we won't really understand how they truly perform. At this stage, they look really good.
So here it is, the finished product, a can of British-grown baked beans. It is only one can though, and Brits, we love them so much that we eat 2 million a day. So they're going to need quite a few more before you'll see them on the supermarket shelves.
Prince's turn out 730,000 cans of beans every day. If trials are successful, there could one day be more variety to choose from, according to Prince's corporate director, David McDermott.
Where it's possible, where it's scalable, where it works, we feel that we have a responsibility to see if we can be involved in that. And of course, these are being grown in Lincolnshire, 30 miles away from where we sit now.
Our reliance on imported beans won't change. The nation's appetite is too great. But an ability to feed ourselves brings a new option to the dinner table. Will Hollis, GB News in Spalding.
That's a nice story, tasty story. I have to tell you, I won't be here tomorrow, so the programme obviously won't be as good.
It won't be as funny.
But anyway, no, it's my birthday, so
Ah.
I'm going back home.
Ah.
And I'm going to be in Ireland, and that's where I'll be until next week.
Have a fabulous birthday. And we'll see you next week, and I'll see you bright and early tomorrow. I'll be here with Stephen, but up next, it's Andrew and Bev with Britain's Newsroom.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. The cold spell continues, a frosty start for many, and we've seen a covering of snow in places. We've still got sleet and snow showers coming in this morning over northern and eastern Scotland, southeast Scotland, northeast England. Could be quite icy out there this morning as well. Well, we've got those showers, and there's a few fog patches to be wary of. A bit more cloud across the south, 1 or 2 rain showers here, but that cloud breaking up through the morning. So actually for most of us, a fine day. Yes, it's going to be cold, 2 or 3 degrees for quite a few of us, but there will be plenty of sunshine. Temperatures a little higher across the south and southwest. The clouds sticking around in the far southwest, and we'll continue with some showers here through the evening and overnight. There'll be rain showers here initially, but more sleet and snow showers coming into the northeast. So again, things could well turn icy. And even in the south, we could just see a little bit of snow coming in over the moors in particular. For many, though, it's another dry, clear night, so another frosty start tomorrow morning. If anything, a little colder. Temperatures more widely down to -3 or -4. And again, some mist and fog patches. Thursday's a bit of a mishmash, again, for quite a few of us, just dry, fine and sunny, but more cloud in the south with some outbreaks of mostly rain on the south coast, but if it's a little further north, could provide some sleet and snow for a time. Further wintry showers keeping coming along some of those North Sea coasts. And again, it's going to be another pretty cold one with temperatures 3 or 4 at best.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Very good morning this morning. Now, we're going to be talking about this rumble in the jungle. That is an appropriate phrase this time. Nigel Farage might be about to get embroiled in a racism row.
It smacks of skullduggery, and is it skullduggery by ITV to get their highest paid entrant in the jungle out? Also, migration, government under pressure now to close down a route for cheap labour coming into the country, which includes people as important to the economy as ballerinas.
Don't undermine ballerinas. We're also going to have Silky Carla here from Big Brother talking about a pretty insidious government bill, and Molly Kingsley on the COVID inquiry.
Who is it? We're here for the show. Welcome to the Dinosaur Hour with me, John Cleese. I was married to a therapist.
And you survived?
I thought we were getting Hugh Laurie. Second best. You interviewed Saddam Hussein. What's that like?
I was terrified. I'm playing strip poker with these three.
Ah!
No, thank you.
My CDs need to be put in alphabetical order.
Are you going to be problematic again?
The Dinosaur Hour. Sundays on GB News.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
There's only 3 people you can trust in life. Your doctor, your lawyer and your nana.
I'm not sure.
So join me, Nana Aquare, at 3 p.m. every Saturday and Sunday, where we discuss the biggest topics of the weekend. Be ready for battle.
Could you be quiet? What is this?
It's
my new teeth. It's your new teeth.
I don't bite. Well, not without a good reason. Always honest, always fun. Every weekend at 3 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I. So you want higher taxes? Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you. Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 9:30 on Wednesday the 29th of November. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Scrap the shortage list. In order to tackle migration, Rishi Sunak is under pressure to scrap a list of jobs that allows foreign workers to come here legally to fill vacancies, including ballet dancers and musicians.
And Michael Gove says sorry at the COVID inquiry. The Secretary of State for Levelling Up apologised for his role in the pandemic, but he was slapped down by the inquiry lawyer when he said this.
There is a significant body of judgment that believes that the virus itself was man-made.
And royal race row.